Hey there, everyone. Welcome to Night's Light Astrology. Oh, excuse me, I haven't talked all day. Today we're going to be going over the charts of Germany. And I say charts, plural, here because, I thought this would just be a short little 20-minute video that I'd upload, but then I was looking at all the different instantiations of Germany and the way that it's grown over the years, and I ended up pulling chart after chart and had to start threading them all together. And I'm loving the stuff that I found here too. But I'm like, we're just gonna make this a feature presentation, which is what I always do on Thursdays. I'll always have some type of feature presentation. And for next week, the feature presentation will be a fun one. We're gonna go over the 4th of July conjunction, kind of all the events we think are going to happen. So enjoy your month of June being a nice calm month for the most part, because it's that's when I'm almost thinking the real year of 2026 begins in July. Oh, thanks, Esperanza. Yeah, I haven't worn this shirt in a while here. It's kind of like riding up a little bit, but we'll kind of get it fixed. um, it's just comfy. I love it, but yeah, so that's what I'm doing next week. But this week we've got the chart of Germany, and then also got some good predictions. I was just having a feeling of, based off of knowing the 1949 chart of Germany, I was having a feeling something was going to happen soon with Uranus crossing over to its sun here. It's already in conjunction, but then it's I think in about, actually it should be when we get that Sagittarius full moon that we get the Uranus right on top of the sun of Germany's 1949 chart. So we got that going on. I was initially thinking it could be some type of terror event. I still like lean towards it, but looking at all these other charts made me think it's probably going to be some domestic terrorism. I think it has to do with a lot of the, I guess, like the Muslim population that they're bringing in. I think most of them are Somalian, but I could be wrong on that. So I was about to say Somali. Uh, but yeah, we've got that going on. There's a lot of stuff, a lot of political upheaval that we're going to be seeing in Germany, and I think it's really going to be at the center of a lot of this, especially. And we'll look at all these charts. We'll go over the info, especially because we've got what is it, Johannesburg, where the which instantiation of Germany was that? That would have been. I actually have it right here. I just want to make sure I get that right. That's when Germany, that's when Prussia came up, when they united the German states under Prussia, is when we had that. And that actually was in Johannesburg or Koenigsberg. I've got it in German here, but I think when I see it in English, it's Johannesburg. And that's modern day Kaliningrad. So that's in Russia. And you see that's like very close to all the Ukraine stuff that's popping off too. So I think that's a big part of all of that. But yeah, I just wanted to really dedicate a longer video to this. Won't be as long as my Trinity of Convergence videos. Like I should be in and out of this like 2 hours max, maybe even shorter than that. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into these charts here. I ended up making another slideshow. I'm just kind of like loving this slideshow thing here. So we got, yeah, chart of Germany. And what I really like about this is some other prerequisite stuff I was going into for this. I wanted to get a feel, because there's Aries action going on, and that deals with the identity. And I wanted to really get into the identity of Germany itself, and not just the identity around the Nazis and all of that, the Weimar Republic and all that. I actually wanted to get into really like the identity that makes the German people in the sense of them being the center of civilization for quite some time, for some would argue decades, some would argue hundreds of years. If you're going off of just the Johannesburg stuff, then that would just be for more decades, where it was the seat of civilization for a time. And you had the best philosophers coming out of there, all that stuff. And there's this debate between philosophers, between Nietzsche and oh, of course, I'm forgetting his name right now. I'm sure it's in the slideshow somewhere, because I did punch in a lot of this stuff. Uh, but between Nietzsche and this other philosopher about unity of will is what it's called. And the unity of will, it's this philosophy that deals with the will of I guess you could say, God coming through us and working through us in these material bodies. And I'm probably going to butcher it with how I'm explaining it and everything, but there's an argument to be made. Should we be acting on our impulses, or should we be acting on essentially the guidelines given by, I guess you could say, the church, acting on the good? And there was this whole debate that goes back and forth. And ultimately, this gets referenced and used for a lot of what we see in Nazi Germany. And through Nazi Germany, it was this unity of will of the people, and everyone being able to be in lockstep, to be highly synchronized as a people. It was Kant. Thank you, Esperanza. Thank you, because I was looking into Kant and oh gosh, I'm well, and Nietzsche, but then yeah, it was definitely Kant. Kant, so Kant versus Nietzsche, and then but then I also went a little further down the line and didn't finish the research on it, between like John Locke and then like Weber and or Weber, and all these people. So I didn't want to get the name wrong there, but it is Kant, yeah, and so that was Kant versus Nietzsche on unity of will versus, and then it's like unity of something else too, which deals more on like the impulses and stuff like that. And surprisingly, Nietzsche was more of like even though we associate Nietzsche with a lot of stuff that isn't very optimistic these days because it deals with socialism and this gets into the unity of will. He was more of the optimist actually, and this is what they adopted as the German people. Yes, really. Yes, 1 point for your brain, Esperanza, for real. No, you saved me. But yeah, I saw that that was a big thing, whether it's during the Prussian Empire, whether it's during the Holy Roman Empire, all of these different instantiations that led into what we now see as the modern German state. Uh, all of these dealt with the unity of will, and this is really reflected in the chart where you're talking about the identity of the nation, the synchronicity of the nation when we're dealing with a lot of these Aquarian placements and Gemini placements. And also just the productivity. There's a lot of Capricorn. So these are like the three major or four major things is the Aryan energy, the Uranian energy, or, Aquarian energy, the Gemini energy, and then that Capricornian energy too, or the Saturnian energy, which is actually quite heavier, even though I didn't lead with that. We've got that heavy Capricorn energy, and you can see that in the German people. Just when you talk individually to Germans, I do live in Las Vegas, so I talk to a lot of foreigners. Or I should say I did in my 20s. I tend to stick away from people now, but I was on the strip a lot, saw a lot of foreigners, and that was one thing I got from a lot of Germans is a very Saturnian feel to them. So you see that still lingering today, but we'll kind of get into this here. So yeah, unity of will across 12 centuries. Oh, if I can, there we go. Okay, I was like, did I skip a slide? All right, so now, for the first time since 1945, Germany is openly rebuilding its strength. And then this strength, it comes from, like you can see this with the $108 billion military budget they're getting into right now. It's the fourth largest in the world. And then there's this goal of fielding Europe's most powerful army. And this comes on the heels of really uncertainty around the Trump administration, what they're going to do. Also saying the quiet part out loud with the moves that we're making. Or I should say, yeah, well, you could see it with the NDS document. I referenced this in the amazing collaboration stream that I did with Merlin and Esperanza. That's on the channel here. It's for the and it's on their channels too as well if you follow them. So feel free to check it out anywhere. It's covering the Sagittarius full moon, and I do give a preview of this during that. But what I brought up was the NDS document, the National Defense Strategy 2026 document, in which it makes it clear that we're moving towards actually just having control of the Western Hemisphere, adhering to the Monroe Doctrine, the new version, which is now called the Dunroe Doctrine. And but that only reason I bring that up is it seems this is the reason they're not knowing if they can trust on NATO. They're also not knowing if they can trust the U.S. to keep on paying for NATO. There's a lot of just uncertainty right now with things shifting. We are in the fourth turning, after all, and the fourth turning, these turning events, these shifts in global power and global hegemons do deal with the Uranus transits, and of course we've got Uranus in play here too, which is going to disrupt things. But yes, a lot of us know about. Oh, hey, good to see you, Jillian. Yes, I know. I just like. I mean, and maybe I always thought it was with what you're saying, loving and appreciating Germany's drive, progression, rediscovery of ancient knowledge. I am, because I'm white, black, and Native American, and my white side is German. I actually don't say this often or anything. Not that I'm embarrassed about it by any means. Like I love my German, but this is like I always wonder: is it just because I'm German that I like Germany so much, or is there some appreciation that I have? And I do think it's the appreciation because some of the smartest minds that we still reference today have come from Germany, and I mean some of the best philosophy during the philosophical Renaissance came out of Germany, and I just love that whole. And I guess what you could say the instantiation of Germany it was at the time, of course, because you're dealing with like Prussia, and then you're dealing with the second wave that was actually, more of the Germany feel. But yeah, the far right over here, the AFD party is what it's called. So their polling is going up 29% here. Post-war firewall that quarantined it is cracking, and so this was the fascinating thing is I I do know about the far right stuff going on in Germany right now. I keep a pretty close eye and ear to the ground on these things, and it just seems like it's ramping up, and they're trying to suppress it as much as they can. And as I'm looking back into specifically the Weimar Republic chart and the 1940, well, it's the Weimar Republic, it's the 1949 chart of at post-war, and then it's also the chart of the Second Reich as well. It's getting aspected very hard right now. And I would even say the reunification in 1990, that chart is also getting lit up right now. So, and then it's so interesting because with the reunification chart being lit up, it's like, what there is this reunification idea that's going to be coming in of getting back into the German identity and German heritage and being proud and the nationalism and all that. And I see that returning, not immediately, but within a couple years. And definitely by next year, you're going to already see the momentum going with Germany on this. But yeah, well, and then see, I didn't even finish reading this. The unhealed split between the old East and West runs underneath it all. So, like I was saying, and then and I'm very happy with this, right, by the way, because AI made this for me, this PowerPoint, and it did a good job this time. I like whatever aspect was going on with Uranus that was giving me all the duplicate words. I think there's like one or two in here. I caught a couple like on this page. You can kind of see like the world, but we're you could tell the orb's loosening because we're not getting all the duplicate words. So. And then something long buried is returning, and the founding charts of Germany answer a single repeating voice. And so we've got all the statistics right there. All right, and then just for anyone who's watching this, whether it's a replay or it's live right now, who doesn't know about mundane charts, mundane astrology, this is going into the charts of nations. You could even say world leaders, things that really drive the society forward, and then accurately casting out predictions, or at least trying to accurately cast out predictions based on those transits that are coming in. So every founding of the German state leaves a horoscope, moment frozen in the sky. But one theme runs through them all, and this is the unity of will. This was the beautiful thing. I was listening to something at the gym on the unity of will, specifically because I'm a nerd like that. And then it all connect like all these people were coming out of Germany and all really connected to these charts, and I thought it was beautiful, so I made sure to really get that integrated into here. But the drive to gather a fractured, encircled people into a single body by law, by genius, and too often by force, you know. And so we're seeing that it's all becoming active again in Germany. People are mobilizing together and coming back together with a unity of will. And this is why I'll go back here because I always bring this up. This map here indicates it as well. This map of what we're kind of looking at for this new world that we're going into. And right here you see Franco-German bloc dominated by Germany, eventually to be taken by Russia. But you're going to see it first become its standalone thing with more power. And then I think there's even going to be something around Johannesburg too. So maybe they're going to retake it because now Johannesburg is, like I said, Kaliningrad, and that is in Russian territory. And this gets into the whole Ukraine thing too. That's just a very important part of this. So it makes me think I'll probably do the Ukraine chart next. I'm kind of torn between Ukraine and Japan, if I'm being honest right now, because doing Germany gets me to want to jump over to Japan and see what's going to be going on there. But let's go back to the, where am I at here? Here we are. Oh, great to see you, Sedona Angel. All right, and we did that. So yeah, this was kind of just what I was going over, just what a mundane chart is, and we were getting into this a little bit on the live that I mentioned, that Sagittarius full moon live. But because there was someone who asked a question of how I came up with the charts, and I still had at this point two more charts to come up with, which was the Holy Roman Empire and the reunification chart. But with this, I did, I found this to be a really good tool, but it's a Campion, Campion's, what is it, like Book of World Horoscopes. That seems to be the standard for mundane astrologers and determining the time for a lot of these things. The only one I couldn't come up with a really exact time with, I believe it was actually the Holy Roman Empire. They said that it was like late morning, like not, definitely not afternoon. And I went back and forth. I saw that most astrologers use the midnight chart, or not midnight, I'm sorry, noon chart. So I ended up going with that. But yeah, so every other chart though has a pretty accurate time on it. Cross reference with Campion, and then also taking Reddit discussions, pushing those through AI, having it give me the both sides of the discussion of the debate, and then kind of going with what I think felt right. And then as far as Reich, of course, we're going to be using different Reichs here. And so that means realm or empire. And so we've had three major ones. Some would argue that there's a fourth Reich. There's definitely the conspiracy theories of the Nazis fleeing to Antarctica, Argentina, kind of having a back and forth going on there. Right. I mean, I find the information to be pretty compelling for that, honestly, but I'm never really sold on anything. I'm very open and fluid. I'm always open to learn more, to change up my information and all that stuff, but I would definitely be open to that. Uh, and yeah, Prussia is not Germany. Prussia is the disciplined northern kingdom that unified the German states. We'll get into the history and all this stuff, but just a couple things before we get into it. And then different figures we're going to be talking about are Frederick the Great, Bismarck. It's like Bismarck von something, or like something von Bismarck, but Bismarck is kind of the short phrase that we'll be using. We have the Kaiser, Hitler, and then Adenauer. I'm like, I think I'm pronouncing that right. And then there's just the Federal Republic now that still governs it today, even though there was the split that happened between it. It has now since been reunified. And so the reunification chart is really more of an event chart, but it's useful to look at in some situations. And I thought in this situation was one of those rare times it's actually good to look at that chart. So, oh yeah, well exactly, yeah. And then there's the whole idea with the moon stuff. What Jillian said here, a fifth Reich as well, the one that supposedly went to the moon. And yeah, that's the thing. And like some people would argue that that's the Fourth Reich, but I'm kind of more with you, where I would think, well, wouldn't you consider that the Fifth Reich, because the fourth would have been, still land based here between Antarctica, Argentina, and then I think it was like Venezuela too, which is interesting because Venezuela's back on the table. And then now Cuba is in the mix, and that deals with the Atlantean ruins and the hot zone and all that stuff. As far as I can tell, like there may be some type of oil aspect, but not the same one that you can get from Venezuela. But of course, we know that there is offshore drilling for oil that goes on over there. So I'm not going to say it's totally not an oil thing, but this really gets into what we see kind of peeking its head out through the surface. And this even gets into, this was one of the cases here where I really like the asteroid use, with what Esperanza went over in the last live stream when we were talking about just Sedna and what Sedna is and everything. Well, we've got that over here conjunct with Uranus right now. And so that does indicate things from the sea coming up. This is the stuff Edgar Casey and Rudolf Steiner talked about, land rising. So I think there is going to be something that we see. As far as I know, Sedna moves pretty slow. So it would be over the next couple of years, we would see something that would actually surface from like physically or just figuratively, but an information type of thing, something that gives us new information that surfaces. And I mean, technically, we could possibly see that in the next 2.5 weeks here, technically. But because it is slower moving, because I'm not so much used to working with the asteroids, or I've never really gotten it to land quite well for me with the asteroids, I wouldn't be willing to put that out there as like a confirmed prediction, but definitely something to look out for sure. And then let's get into, and so here's the fun thing, guys, is Neptune in Aries. You know, and I hate to be lingering on these outer planets. This just started as me trying to look at the chart of Germany. Then it became multiple charts. Then it became this Neptune and Aries thread of like three of them, and really only two of them. But like now we're in the third Neptune and Aries. You know, and then this you can even make some fun things with the Third Reich. You know, and all that kind of stuff. Because there's just that three thing right there. Like, is the Third Reich coming back? That's what a lot of people would say about the AFD party too. So, but yeah, the founding dream. So Neptune's the planet of collective dream, shared myth. It rules a lot more. It can rule like a delusion, things dissolving. You know, it even rules things like petroleum. So, but this is just kind of where it becomes relevant here in this discussion we're having today. And then Aries is the sign of the will. You know, the warrior, the self. It's the individual. Well, you know, the self, the individual. But when you're talking about a nation, it is like collectivizing and actually unifying a nation too. When you get these Aries placements in the charts of nations in specific things that you can look at, but because really with Neptune and Aries, some could view that as dissolving of the people, or it could be a dissolution of the individual into the greater collective, especially when you're dealing with all these Aquarian placements we're going to look at too. There's a great dynamic that goes on, but just kind of giving a little bit here. And then we've got that every 165 years too. And then, but yeah, both German empires founded inside Neptune and Aries. So I think that we're going to see some type of new, in the next 14 years specifically, a new type of German empire, German hegemony that rises in Europe, and that goes in with that map that I showed. Not that I can like just take that map as fact, but there's something where it sits right with me, that map. Like it just seems to really, it ties in with the astrology, it ties in with what some of the best I guess you could say scholars are talking about in the ways in which we're going to see the world reorganize. But Uranus is in play with all this, and especially when it's in Gemini too, it's always going to be the thing that you really don't expect. So we're kind of giving an idea of how we can see things play out, and it'll be maybe 60-70% true, but there is going to be some type of wild curveball that we're not anticipating. Of course, there's so much more about mythos that, oh, I'm just catching up on the chat, guys. Okay. All right, and then you know, a lot of this stuff that we're going to be dealing with, we've got Saturn Neptune conjunctions that are in play here. Remember, I talked about how uh, Germany, Prussia, all these instantiations they're very Saturnian, you know, and so when Saturn gets this play on things, this is where you see things start to happen here. And but yeah, with Saturn, Neptune, and then Neptune is going to be in the mix too. So you add them together, but. Uh, the old orders break down and reform. This is when like Saturn meets Neptune, because it's the ideology too. That's another thing with Neptune we didn't mention, dissolution. But then so with Saturn's going to be the structure, it's the systems and all that stuff. So by definition, you can tie that into the state or the government. The 36-year cycle has time, and yeah, so the actual cycle for Saturn Neptune conjunction is going to be 36 years. So you can even tie that into a lot of the patterns that we see across Germany itself too. Even when you're looking at, say, the the founding of what we have now, which is like the the Republic of Germany, I guess, the First Republic of Germany, the FRG, and which is the version we have now, especially once it's been reunified, and the reunification moment too. You can see that play that goes on. So and then this is what we've even got here on the side. It's giving you these different times. And by the way, guys, AI has really stepped it up, because it's I used to not really be able to trust it to come up with accurate things for me. So I'm like, okay, like I really am just gonna have to go over these charts myself. But I have the charts open. We're gonna go into them, but I might not even need to. You know what I mean? Like if I didn't want to, I didn't need to. Or I wouldn't need to. Yeah. But anyway, what I actually did with AI now is it's able to scan the ephemeris and come up with all these positionings. So it actually will give me what I need it to. I'm like, hey, Like, just do this for me. Just scan the ephemeris. This is what I'm working on. Like, get it done. Like I already know what these are, but am I going to sit there and type in all of these different placements over the things that I noticed and the connections? And it's doing a lot now. Now it just does it for me. And then, it says even on the bottom right hand corner here, conjunction dates via Swiss ephemeris. And I hope you guys are liking the like me being on the left side now. I figure because I'm kind of like looking this way a lot of the time, like it makes more sense for me to be on the left side. So I'm like looking at the presentation with you. So hopefully you like it a little more on this side here. Oh my gosh, 120 in Florida one time? That's crazy. Especially with the humidity. We don't even get 120 here in Vegas. Oh, thanks. Okay. I'm happy you guys like it. And then let's see here. Yeah, and then so obviously we've been talking a lot this year. Anyone who's into astrology has been talking about this Saturn Neptune conjunction. So there is a huge change that is coming to the state of Germany just based off the stuff you can see. So 1702-03, that's Prussia consolidating, 1846, that it was in Aquarius, and that this is like where we get into the revolutions that really led into I believe it was 1871, the Second Reich that came in. And then 1917, that's the Weimar Republic. So there always is some, and this is the Weimar Republic, for anyone who doesn't know, is what came in here that heralded in Hitler's rise to power, was through the Weimar Republic. So, and not saying that the Weimar Republic was necessarily the ones who bankrolled this or anything like that, but people a lot of the times lately are talking about, oh, we're in a Weimar Republic moment, blah blah blah, and this is where the degeneracy got so bad, all of these things got so bad. So that's where you saw that conjunction, and this is now in present day times where you can see we're going to kind of go into the same thing, whether you want to tie the degeneracy, because we're talking about like transsexualism, all sorts of like huge things with gay stuff being out there, and you got to remember this was a different time too, so there was a huge pushback by the people, and to the best of my knowledge, there was a certain group of people that we're not really allowed to talk about that were pushing all of this stuff. So there is a little bit where this comes in, that like there was a reason that this ideology of 1933 specifically, which was the Third Reich, there's a reason this ideology came in. There were a lot of people that you could point to. Am I saying I agree with it? No. But what I am saying is we just have to understand the mechanisms behind this thing, because we are seeing a rise in anti-Semitism again. So having the astrology on our side really helps us. And then yeah, the reunification too, that was another time we had that conjunction, and then here we are now. And then we're back at the conjunction again. So, and then I don't think there's anything here I missed. But yeah, we just got these 36-year cycles here that really get tied to Germany. It's essentially the clock for Germany. Another interesting thing is Uranus and Aries too. So we get these Uranus and Aries things that happen. This was Uranus. So this would have been the revolution. So we don't have a chart for the revolutions themselves, but we do have the chart for the Third Reich seizing power in 1933. And so that's really a fun one that'll be a fun one to look at and see here, especially when we're dealing with other Aries placements like the Neptune Aries and all that stuff. Aries is a huge thing, and this is why I keep driving it back to the will to power for the German people. And this is where it comes from, is their astrology. But it's kind of a chicken or the egg thing, right? Is it the astrology or is it the people? Like, they play off of one another. We have that inherent connection to the stars. And then this time, I think it's, the way that we see it, it really ties in with this leveling up of technology that we get in Uranus and Gemini. But then also having that timed with the Saturn and Neptune going into Aries here too, on the world point more specifically, that shows like a leveling up with how this technology, how the industrialization, and we'll look at all the Capricornian stuff with the industrialization of Germany too, because that's what Germany is known for, is their industry, and their industrialization, and just how Capricornian they can be with that. But we're going to really see how they're able to take the technology in a very specific way that the rest of the world isn't able to replicate, and use that to integrate into the will of their people. This is my prediction. Integrate that into the will of the people, hopefully in a good way. Hopefully it's not so much like they integrate their bodies with AI or something like that, but I think they'll be pretty good with it. Integrate that into the will of the people, and then really be the leaders of Europe coming up too, and which will be difficult though because of the fertilizer stuff going on, but we can kind of tie that in with these placements and everything. And then yeah, Aries, for anyone who doesn't know, is ruled by Mars. So it's like the will, war. It's really the same stuff we said with the rulerships of Aries there when you're looking at Mars there. But then we also have to look at some interesting Mars things that are going to be happening in these charts as well. All right. And so, yeah, I like how this phrase this as Rome's ghost, the Holy Roman Empire, because it really is like it's almost like a skin suiting of Rome after the fall happened, and this is well after the fall of, well, it depends on how you look at it, because that's a whole thing I went into in my other series with the Trinity of Convergence, where like when was the actual fall itself of the Roman Empire and stuff. Like I was able to I came up with a date, but it's debated and all that. But this, for I would say that this was well after the fall, of the Roman Empire. And you get different dates. I should like look it up just to be safe. But I think that ended up being like, it wasn't long after. It was like 80 AD or something like that, I think. I'll just look here real quick. Oh no, I'm thinking of the fall of Athens was 80 AD. Okay, so 476 CE. And then yeah, so like I said, this was still well after though, so 962. Yeah, that was the thing I went into, was the fall of Athens, but I had to do some stuff on the fall of Rome too, just to see the connections in my pre-research. Oh, here, let me put this down. Okay. But yeah, so this, and we'll get into this chart here. Another thing I love with AI here, it finally managed to do it right, where it made its own individual chart, and it like got it right. It got the symbols right for the planets, for the actual signs, and it's just highlighting the specific thing we're talking about. So it's got a couple of these going into the thing, and I just love how it set this up. So thank God. Well, and they just upgraded Claude too. So I don't think I was even using the new model, but just because they have a new model in there, it's like it messes with all sorts of stuff, and you see new capabilities coming in even on the older model. I'm just using like, there's 4.7, and then now they just released 4.8, but I'm always using 4.7, which uses a lot of usage, but it gets the job done. But I noticed it was much better these last couple of days. So anyway, let me stay on topic, guys. Sorry. So yeah, on Christmas Day, 1800, Pope crowned Charlemagne emperor, and then in 962, Otto the First was the one who was crowned, and so these are kind of two charts that we'll look at here. But what followed was not a unified state, but a confederation. Thousands of duchies, some would say it's pronounced duchies, but I always like duchies. Free cities, bishoprics. Okay. Famously neither holy nor Roman nor an empire. Yeah, exactly. But really, what's important with this is that the German, when you look at this Sun and Saturn conjunction in Aquarius here, the decentralization of Germany, that's baked in from the beginning of German's identity. And so that's what's really important as a thread we're going to carry across this, and really see how there's going to be this pushback on the decentralization. You see this rise in populism that's so incredible in Germany right now. But let's get over to the chart here. We'll just kind of glance at these really quick. So this was like a fun one. Grand Trine, I mean, the trine is going to the solar eclipse, so it's kind of like, do I count it? But I would say I count it, just because you've got the sun like really still in that sign. So this is like fresh after eclipse season. The eclipse happened here. And then, but yeah, the trine is between the solar eclipse, which obviously has the north node up in there. It's between Chiron down here in Taurus, and then up here at 0 degrees Virgo, you've got that Saturn there. So this really speaks to not only recovering, you could say recovering like lost wealth, abundance, and all that. And you really did see this post Charlemagne too. But then also it just speaks to that huge Capricornian influence that was already there in these first aspects that we saw. And then this is the interesting part here that's here too, is the lunar eclipse was also, I guess I'm not used to seeing that, but the solar eclipse and the lunar eclipse were both in there. So that really speaks to the underlying energy that was really lingering around. You got Pluto in Aquarius right here too. So there's that Aquarian energy coming in too. And this deals with the collective, and rebirth through the people and stuff like that. Now, I didn't have a lot of time to get into Charlemagne. I did a deep dive on him years ago. And I mean, compared to what was going on before Charlemagne, and I know there was a lot of war and bloodshed leading up that Charlemagne was engaged in and stuff, but ultimately he did bring, there was this level of order that he brought in, and this is an order that you can see that's really reflected in the German identity going forward from this moment. Like I said, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but yeah, there was that damage around like the second house, the Taurus stuff, the belonging, the value, all that things, and he really was able to bring all that stuff back in on top of it. And this is like one of these minor energies we're going to kind of see too, is this Piscean energy, this dissolution energy that we really get into, dissolving energy. But yeah, with Jupiter and the moon right there. And then, what I thought was interesting too when I was looking at this was you have the sextile that goes up here to it would be the north node, right? Or it would be the sun, to the sun. You have that trine going up here to the sun from Jupiter. And then with that placement, especially in the 11th house, this just still speaks to the collective. And I remember learning from Charlemagne, like he actually seemed to be for the people. And then so much so, when it was time for him to when he knew he was going to die and he was going to have to give up the crown, he didn't pass it over to one single son. You saw him split it up amongst his sons, split everything up, and that kind of creates the whole vibe of like I actually am surprising myself that I remember this, because this was years ago I learned this, but you see him splitting all that up amongst his sons, and that's very Aquarian too, which is going to be that 11th house ruler is Aquarius right there. And so he's got that up in there, and this right here is a pretty accurate time. So I mean, even with the wiggle room that you'd give this, which would be 30 minutes either way of that, you're still going to get that sun in the 11th house. You're still going to get these things in the first house here too. And then the moon is actually aspecting the its own lunar eclipse that it had too. So it's almost like this is like in some ways there are some things that were dissolved around that. It would depend on which chart you pulled up for it, around which thing, what issue there was that was going on. But ultimately that moon coming in really helped out with that. And then, in medieval astrology, Jupiter is going to be the ruling planet of Pisces there too. So there's some power that's going on right there with Jupiter and its rulership. Now, they're not within orb, but very interesting. The squares, I mean, I don't think I have enough context really of the times to go into these squares and what they're going to mean. But really what I'm trying to get out is what we're going to see from Germany going forward, where I'm getting all this stuff from. All right. And then, oh yeah, and then there was this one too. I'm so sorry. This is the Holy Roman Empire here. So with this, we had the Grand Trine. I don't know if I mentioned about the Grand Trine, so excuse me if I didn't. But this being the Holy Roman Empire here, and this is going to be quite a bit, like 100 something years after. Yeah, 160 years after. Oh, and then what's going on here with... Okay, I'm just like checking. I'm making sure I didn't miss like the Neptune Pisces or anything. But you do have that Mars coming into Uranus here, which is interesting. So, because there's that whole Martian thing that goes on, and the Uranian aspect that we deal with time and time again over these vast swaths of time that are dealing with the different versions of Germany. And then, but I notice with these are both in Italy too, that these are founded, because it's the Holy Roman Empire, but it falls into being part of it. And you see, as the Holy Roman Empire diminishes, where it gets pulled back to is to like Prussia, is to like it really lives on within Prussia, Germany, and all that. That's where you kind of see it living on. Some would argue Russia in some regards. I would argue though, because when you're talking about that, it's more that you're talking about the Catholicism and the Eastern Orthodoxy. I would argue that that actually is the surviving East Romans from Constantinople. I would argue it's more that personally. Maybe in chat someone would agree with me on that or disagree with me because hey, I love having discussions and changing my viewpoint. But yeah, so here this gets into what we're talking about, guys. That heavy Aquarian energy that we've got here, and it even from first glance it looks like this is in Capricorn, but no, this stuff is all here in Aquarius. So we've got a and guys, by the way, retrograde Venus, retrograde Mercury. We're going to have a retrograde Venus and retrograde Mercury squaring this later this year. And this is going to be right before the elections in Germany. So some shit's going to pop off, guys. There's some shit that's popping off politically. That is my takeaway. I've even got this right here. I'll put it full screen for a second. We'll get to this at the end, but like I was able to get an AI charted this amazingly and made a timeline and put all the different conjunctions on it, and then like all the stuff I was putting down for predictions. It even added to the predictions too. So this tells you how much channeling you're doing when you're doing a prediction, because it's like stuff like, oh, I didn't realize that like also confirms the prediction. Okay, so we'll kind of get into those predictions, but we're gonna see some shit the next 3 years that's really gonna pop off in Germany, and it's gonna be pretty incredible. I think it's gonna be incredible to watch personally. It's gonna be quite violent, not like super violent, but there's gonna be violence. So that's what sucks about it. But yeah, but we've got a grand cross here. And then really the only reason the cross isn't showing this other opposition in between is because it is the nodes. And so like by default, I don't have the nodes showing that opposition because they're always opposing each other, you know. Hey, what's up, Sydney? Good to see you. Or I'll call you by your screen name, which is so badass. Shitney. What up, Shitney? But yeah, so all of this. So we've got that those retrogrades. They're going to be squared retrogrades in October here, leading up to that election time, and then even you got Saturn in Aquarius. So that Saturn right there, I believe that Pluto's almost right on top of it. Last I checked, Pluto was at 5 degrees Aquarius, but it's going to move over there. And then we're also we've got the sun in Aquarius, so you got that Aquarian stellium right there. You got these sextiles and aspects down here to Neptune in Libra here, and this Neptune in Libra really well. I'll kind of get more into that because I want to be precise with the history. I know it's in the slides. I don't want to like misremember and everything, but it does really deal with the dissolution of. How would I describe this? I would say it's like if you're looking at what went away from the actual Roman Empire, the Roman Empire that had at this point been fallen for hundreds of years. This gets into me saying like it's the skin suiting of it. I would really say it has to do with that. And then at this, what this really plants the seed for, though, was some deeper Uranian stuff. Instability, volatility, and all that, but that we don't see it really unlock though for it would be like 700 years, about 700 years. And there's this interesting convergence between Martin Luther, the 30 Years' War, which happened after Martin Luther died, but he set it into motion, and then some of the things we're seeing in this chart too. And so during the Trinity of Convergence series, that was my Uranus and Gemini section, where we went over the Martin Luther, the 95 Theses he put up, and really went against the Catholic Church. Well, this stuff was happening in Germany, so that is going to be a part of the conversation here. These are less important charts, though, but, like I'm going to end up doubling back to this because there's some other aspects on here. I kind of want to get to some stuff in the slideshow before we double back, but... All right, and then, but yeah, so this kind of deals with that, and then obviously we've got that Sun and Saturn conjunction. That was what I brought up, and that's just baked in. It's the German decentralization that we're dealing with across all these different instantiations of the German Empire, the German country, Prussia, the reunification, all that stuff. All right, Capricorn Empire, Libra Confederation. And so this is more like what we're talking about here with that chart, Capricorn Empire, Libra Confederation. So this would be like the confederation kind of thing here going on. Especially if you put add in these positive aspects too, that makes a lot more sense. You're adding in these positive aspects of Aquarian because that would be more of the confederation type of thing here. And then there's the dissolution that comes from really about these old partnerships, old agreements. That's kind of what I'm thinking of when I look at this chart because of and this ends up getting undone too. So it's interesting that Neptune is in play because it doesn't always have to be dissolution. This can be a future dissolution, which we will see with further Libra stuff. Especially there's a conjunction in Libra, which I believe is Saturn Neptune, that happens later on, and this would be for Prussia, I believe, but don't quote me here. But yeah, the Libra signature is the confederation itself, power shared and weighed among many, never centralized. The Aquarius cluster of 962 says the same thing, a federation of the many under one idea. And so, and this is for the first Reich though. Yeah, so first, oh yeah. So okay, I'm making sure I have my Reichs in order. So that is the chart that we looked at. Okay, cool. Just making sure. And let's see what else we've got here. And then this is what I brought up, what leads to the 30 days war. But yeah, that's kind of what we're talking about. So that this is where we've got that decentralized power baked in, as we talked about, into the chart that's up here. And then this sets up for a later dissolution of that, which we will see. Yeah, so I think I was reading that pretty good there with that. And then I guess before I move on from this chart, the last thing we could talk about is just these squares that we've got here. So I believe that that's some Saturn squaring, or it's probably Mercury squaring right there, because I think Saturn would be just out of orb. And I guess, well, I can always look down here, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, so Saturn squaring the nodes, and then, yeah, so not Mercury at all, I don't think. Yeah, so Saturn squaring both of those, and it must just be giving, oh, yeah, I was thinking of that backwards. Okay, so Saturn squaring the nodes here, right there and there, and then that's in Aquarius. And really what that's dealing with too is, people actually having their own thing, their own resources, materials, not having them taken from them with the 12th house. You get back into that, like what's hidden, you could even view that as things being taken, having to send it off somewhere where it's disappearing, where it's dissolving, that kind of stuff. And now this one, even though it's a noon chart, it seems to be pretty close to. This was the only chart it wasn't accurate on, so maybe I won't go so much into the houses, but that would even just make sense with the houses. So this one ends up being a noon. Like, people are still undecided on this one though. Like, for this one, it seemed to be between 11 to 1 was what I was getting. Then there was another argument that was talking about it being super early, and they kind of took me back and forth. But this is the standard that most people use, is this noon chart. So I'm like, okay, you know what, we'll run with it. But still, anytime there's a noon chart, I'm less get my Reichs in order. Oh my gosh. Anytime I'm running with a noon chart, I really try not to lean too hard on the houses or anything like that. But then you've got that South Node in Scorpio, and I would even just say in general, without the houses in that kind of lends itself to like the things that were being taken away, and like needing to actually get into this more decentralized version of what the Roman Empire, the Holy Roman Empire was, you know what I mean? But then if you even think about it, I guess what you could see here is, I mean, we do have the moon in Sagittarius for that. So that really speaks to, there's still, you're still answering to a higher power on that. And then with the aspects there, it's in sextile to Saturn right there. And then is it just in sextile to Saturn? It looks like it. Yeah. I'm not seeing that Mercury getting aspected with that. Yeah, okay. But yeah, it's in the sextile with Saturn, so that even lends itself more into, as long as the beliefs are right, as long as you're following the religion properly, and that's what we saw in this empire as well. So I think that it definitely doesn't cover everything in the chart. Mars Aries, that's an interesting one to throw in there. Mars Aries, you guys know the Martian energy and the Aries energy is I've said it's going to be pretty heavy in a lot of these charts. So that's just another thing to really add into there. And you could even say this is where a lot of you saw the beginning of this German will to power being developed. And it starts with that seed of the Mars and Aries there. And we'll see what else falls in Aries too going forward. We'll just kind of make a mental note for that. All right. And then, yeah, the 30 Years' War, Saturnian moon. Now, for this one, the 30 Years' War, I could have pulled up a chart, but really there's only one aspect to look at that gets into this. So I'm like, like we'll kind of keep it as is because I think I have like 6 charts right now. We've already covered 2 charts, which is good, you know. So we're making much better time than normal, guys. Like I'm not making it a thing to do these 3-hour streams like I did with my series. That was just to kind of get out some information I hadn't seen anyone really tackle, and now that can serve as a foundation for this further stuff. And you see I'm already referencing that information in this right here, so I'm really happy I got that out. Now, the defenestration of Prague. So this is a religious war, essentially. Like they ended up pushing people off of like castle building, pushing what was it like? I guess it says here, but they were like cleric people, right? Killed up to a third of the German population. And oh well, the defenestration of Prague particularly was what kicked off the 30 Years' War. Remember what I said about the 30 Years' War? This was seeded by Martin Luther. Okay, and this was during Uranus and Gemini that was seeded. And then so that's kind of an interesting corollary we can look at for present times. We'll get to that. But for the defenestration of Prague, yeah, they took all these people up, all of the Catholic, I guess you could say bishops, but they're more like governors. They were Catholic governors that they took them up to the top of the castle buildings, and they like pushed them off of the buildings. And this happened in several different places, but there was one specific event where it was a lot of them that got pushed off of the buildings, and I was just like, I don't know, I couldn't help but like, I got a bad sense of humor. I was laughing at it. Like as it happened, I'm like, oh no, I shouldn't be laughing because this was the whole idea of the Protestants versus the Catholics in that time period. And so this is what was seeded by Martin Luther. Then the defenestration of Prague happens, and then it ignites this religious war, and it was a 30 Years' War. I think it's pretty straightforward right there, you know. But so what we see with the breakout of that, and I did pull up the chart just to verify this on my phone, but you know, like I didn't think it was worth us going into the chart, but this broke out with a Mars Saturn Pluto conjunction in Taurus. So there's that your Mars and your Saturn going on, and then the Pluto stuff right there, and then in Taurus. So with the Taurus stuff, let me kind of look through here because I believe there's some heavy. We get a couple. Yeah, we start to get. This is kind of one of those minor signs with Germany, but you do get the Taurus stuff that goes on. It's always seeming to accent the Capricorn stuff to make them good builders, to, you know, let them know their value, that kind of stuff. Especially one of those had a moon in Taurus, you know. So this is kind of where you see that tying in specifically. But yeah, Mars, Saturn, Pluto in Taurus, that was the outbreak. But this is just more of a minor transit, which becomes more relevant later, as we'll see. And then let's see. And then the Saturn Pluto conjunction in Gemini was the peace agreement. Saturn Pluto. So that's where it was seated. And then after you get a full Saturn rotation, Mars has split up from all that. The war-like aspect has split up from all of that. You get the Saturn Pluto conjunction in Gemini, which is about this open communication and all that. And this is the peace. We even covered this. This may have been with Uranus and Gemini. It seems a little early. It may have been though. But yeah, that's where you have the Saturn Pluto conjunction without the Mars in there, and then having it be in Gemini. This is where it gets into, okay, like we can have the open communication, the open discussion about religion. We can have these like battles out, and you know, these discussions. Essentially, it got more into a discussion based, an idea based war on the religion. So you see that. And then, yeah, Peace of Westphalia is where the peace came in. That's what it's called, 1948, under the Saturn-Pluto conjunction. And then Westphalia founded the modern system of states itself. That's interesting to know. 30 Years' War, Saturnian wound, very perceptive. Thank you very much, yeah. Well, and Saturn is my strongest planet. Let me just have a drink here. So I tend to notice stuff with Saturn, and I'm pretty Aquarian too, so I notice a lot of stuff with Uranus too. Those are the ones I lean towards a lot. But yeah, like I think I'm a +8 Saturn or something like that. So I love Saturn stuff. All right, and then 1701. This is where we get Prussia. You know, and Prussia is going to be the ones that are specifically standing against Napoleon. Now they didn't do well, you know, but they're going to be the ones who are standing against Napoleon here. And a kingdom from the ashes, out of the war's devastation, rose Prussia. And really, let's make sure we're being accurate with this, though, okay? Because I remember Napoleon being like mid to late 1700s. So we're going to do like Napoleon active. No, not Napoleon active where? Active years. There we go. Can you guys imagine what Napoleon activewear looks like? That'd be interesting. Yeah, okay, cool. So I was thinking it properly. Okay, I was just making sure it wasn't before. And maybe I'll have some stuff kind of come through to me while I'm looking at this because I'm such a nerd, guys. I This was years ago, but I sat and I watched every single battle from like a top-down view of all of Napoleon's battles. And a lot of these were against the Prussians, so I might just like pull out some random facts. We'll see here if I remember anything, but about just that time in general. Um, okay, so Prussia, a disciplined northern state that climbed from vassalage to kingdom. So this is where we get that Frederick that I'm talking about, where King Frederick comes in. So Frederick crowned himself king in Prussia in 1701. Sovereignty workaround on Europe's edge. Okay, and so this is all of a sudden where we get that, and then look at we've got the sun in Capricorn there. We've got Saturn in Pisces, and then we've got Neptune in Aries. So this is the first Neptune in Aries that we see that comes in. We're still dealing with the Aquarian energy because Jupiter's in Aquarius, We're dealing with all that Aquarian stuff. And then also you got Uranus in Cancer, and that comes, this comes on the heels, Uranus and Cancer, of the the war's devastation, what it did to the homeland. This is what had them going from a decentralized state to all of a sudden unifying again. So you get these ebbs and flows throughout the time period of Germany, and it's different variations of it, where there's like decentralization of power, consolidation of power, decentralization, consolidation. And so, this is really what we're seeing is, as far as I can tell, we've been in a consolidation period of power in Germany. And I think we're going to move into a more decentralization thing, especially when you look at the political movements that are going on in Germany right now. But yeah, and then you've got Pluto and Leo there. Oh, hey, the same placement as the boomers. And then you've got also the North Node in Leo. And so this can really speak to what that is because, during this time, you have to remember the North Nodes move backwards. So you would have had, like, fairly close to this event, the North Node would have crossed over Pluto, and that would have brought us through transformation of everything through actually having a king in. And then we've got Venus and Sagittarius. The religion's still going to play a bigger part, the faith. And then you can see this with what comes after too, because when Napoleon takes power, we're still working with, as far as I can tell, the Prussian chart. Or Napoleon is in France, excuse me there. But no, that was the big thing between Napoleon and this is a part that you'll find interesting. Even though, like, I was thinking of it wrong, it makes this go even harder. So Napoleon was actually utilizing the will to power, I guess you could say, theory. And then this is where the Prussians first see it and where they take that on as an ideology and they make it even better. I mean, this will be after their war, their loss to Napoleon, that they make it better. But this is like a principle. So you can really, I think that you can personally see that with the Venus in Sagittarius. And then, you got the Neptune Aries too, which it kind of gets into this whole thing we're talking about with will to power, So some interesting placements there. And then and then this is also what happens in Königsberg, or oh god, I need to see it in English. Okay, well, Königsberg, or you guys know what I'm saying. Königsberg, though, we'll just go with that. But this is the Prussian chart for that, the chart of Prussia. And then we've got this stuff going on. Yep, so like all these placements that we were talking about here. And then I think I really covered all of those. But, you've got, and then what's interesting here, I wouldn't call this a conjunction, but you're getting pretty close with Saturn and Mars right there. And this is where the eclipse was, the lunar eclipse that had just occurred. The last lunar eclipse, I should say, that occurred. So you have this Saturn and Mars coming in, and you know how important these planets are to Germany's chart. Even though we haven't gone through all the charts yet, we're only about halfway through. You see how important these planets get right there. And then being in the sign of Pisces, so that brings in, so you can almost consider this, with you've got the Neptune in Aries right there. This deals with the dissolution already, but then the ruling planet of Aries, you've got over here. And so there's a type of mutual reception going on as well. This would be in modern astrology, of course, because you would go over to Jupiter in classical, but for the purposes of this, that's why I say a kind of mutual reception. But yeah, and then but with Saturn there too, I mean, this is really just, it's dissolving a lot of, and this is what we see is the dissolution, the different consolidations, the decentralization, the reconsolidation, and all that stuff. So you got this like really dissolving. And then I also think with yeah, look at that in Charlemagne's court. This is where you see the full dissolving of really a lot of the stuff that Charlemagne brought in 1,000 years, almost 1,000 years prior to that, but yeah, back to that chart. And then we've also got a wedge here. Would that be, am I remembering this right, guys? Is that a wedge? I think it's called a wedge. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong with these three squares in opposition here. I'm like total. I feel like it's called something else. I don't know, but yeah, you've got that powerful placement here, and then that's between that moon and Taurus. And then am I crazy or yeah? And then we had this other stuff in Taurus too. So there's where the Taurus comes back in. That moon in Taurus, this is in the first house. Now this is a precise time too, so we can use the houses here too. And so this even brings me back to the whole idea of unity of will, and really what kind of unity of will was being brought forward at this time. What dissolutions around it with that Neptune there. It's in the first house. I mean, it's an Aries rising chart, so it's pretty straightforward. You get a lot of matches between the houses and their lords or their rulers. But then you do have the moon, even though it's in Taurus, it is still in the first house too. And then you got that in square with the collective here. And I think this speaks pretty loudly about what the Jupiter in Aquarius here having to deal with the collective, but it also deals with like technology and all that too. I think this deals with essentially what they built, what they're building. It's really going to go against, how would I say this? Just give me a moment. It's because what we see going forward from this is going to be the loss of Napoleon. So even though at this time they're they're at the forefront of a lot. Remember what I said about Königsberg? Yeah. I'm like, am I saying it right? What I said about it, where they were bringing some of the best, they had some of the best minds, they had some of the best stuff going on and everything. But then in terms of the industrialization, this isn't something that we're quite seeing yet, because the French are the ones who are going to rise up and beat Prussia. And there's also this sense that I'm getting of this, especially with Pluto here in opposition of, especially in Leo, with I think that thinking like being too big for your britches kind of thing going on. And this is like a process that we see that starts to happen. I mean, it's going to take 80 years really to go through this process and then like actually have the defeat by Napoleon and all that stuff and have the next version. And really 80 years is just where we see the rise of Napoleon, because the next chart is 1871. So we really actually go through a whole Neptune rotation, and we'll get to that chart next, because that's going to be the Second Reich. Or wait, yeah, that's the Second Reich. So yeah, there's all this play with Neptune, Aries, the rulerships of both of them. When you're looking at like Pisces and looking at like Mars too, and all that stuff. There's all this interesting play that's going on. Uranus here in Cancer, and then didn't we have? Where was it? I could have sworn we had a Uranus. I think it was a Uranus in. Okay, I'm just like getting confused. I'm looking at too many charts at once, right? I think that's like really the important stuff. You've also got the the solar eclipse in Virgo, which is interesting because we've got that Uranus in Virgo for the Holy Roman Empire. So solar eclipse in Virgo, where you really start to move away. And then when you're looking at Virgo, the collective is much more of an Aquarian thing. But there is still some part of like the working people, it, it is work. It's your daily work. But then it's also service and that kind of stuff. So there is some part of the collective that you can kind of derive from, but more like the collective work that gets put in, that kind of thing. And so with that being in the solar eclipse, you see that huge shift. And then you've got this, well, we talked about this already, but it's that square with that. But not a whole lot more to really pull from this chart. Chiron in Libra is an interesting thing because look at that. We had the Neptune in Libra before, and all these trines that were happening. This was for the Holy Roman Empire. So the Chiron came and it really addressed with the sextile to Venus. It addressed all of that which unfolded since then, you know, and really it came to a completion moment with because Libra's going to deal with your contracts, with your deals and all that stuff, and they were over that. Like, so that's a powerful placement to have there. But we'll get back here. So Kingdom from the Ashes, home of Immanuel Kant. And so this is where we can kind of bring Kant into the fold. Birthplace of graph theory and one of Europe's most tolerant cities. Creative genius bound to military discipline. And this is another thing I even forgot to mention too. We'll see if we can find something in the chart here that has to deal with this. But the thing that was so interesting about Johannesburg is they got a lot of flack and a lot of people misunderstanding them because of the militarization they went through. But and this gets into it like this is where it gets really interesting too. Is this play on the will to power? I think I forgot to say this or maybe misrepresented this, but this play on the will to power, I mean, it is still going to be rising during this time because I think personally it comes out of Johannesburg. Then you see Napoleon take it, he makes it better, and then they have to reevaluate it with the next line of philosophers that come in. And so hopefully that's not confusing. I'm kind of jumping around and remembering things and all that, but there you go on that. And then, yeah, okay, I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, and that's it. What's interesting about this too is like it's the seed chart for a lot of this stuff, and this is why I mean I found myself going all the way back to Prussia, and I'm like, dude, there are things getting hit here too, and this seems to be related to this version of Germany, and this seems to be related to this version of Germany, and I just had to go through and do it all. But I think we only have about like two charts left, and then we can kind of go over a thesis and all that. Like I said, I'm gonna make sure to keep this fairly short for you guys today. Uh, so the seed of everything downstream, the sun sits at 28 degrees Capricorn. The disciplined state as machine, it's funny as I'm like looking at this, I didn't even go over the sun, but yeah, guys, we have the sun there too. That's going to bring in the structures too, and the discipline and all that with Mercury there too. And then it's coming into conflict with this, and this is why we really. I almost feel like I'm contradicting myself because I'm like going back and forth on the will to power thing here, but there is difficult stuff in this chart around that whole will to power thing I'm talking about there actually being the collective, and this is not like the ultimate version of it that you see, the most unifying version. I would argue that is the Third Reich that you see, where people are in lockstep. I mean, when you even just watch all that, because when you see like the pictures of them all like having their leg up and like arms like at the same time, their uniforms all crisp and like just totally, that really speaks to the evolution you see of the German will to power. Yeah, so Neptune stands at 5 degree Aries. We went over that, the dream of will and all that. So I guess I was leaning more on the dissolution part of it, but there's the dream part. And that's why it's sounding so contradictory, because it deals with dissolution, but it also deals with dreaming. And then through those dreams, you can actually have good things come forward here. But really, you're only dealing with an aspect with a square here in Capricorn, and so it's a bit, they're at the point now where it's unrealistic, where it can serve them in a lot of ways, but it's unrealistic, and they don't necessarily have the aspects where it can be. Now, you can look over here to Pisces, because there's some Neptune stuff going on, and then even like take that and kind of make some reaches, sure, as to like where it helped them. Like it helped them to handle things in the homeland that popped off. It helped them handle instability in the homeland, sure. Fourth house, and it's in Cancer already, so you could say that. You could say it also gave them, and that's really where this first house, Taurus moon, comes in. Is it gave there's a comfort that it gave them, there's a comfort it was able to give them. And there's a beautification they were able to do. And you see how beautiful Prussia was at this time period. There was a beautification that it brought to the homeland, and it made it attractive and alluring to other people. All right. And then and then Saturn, oh yeah, Saturn applies to that Neptune. So the Saturn Neptune conjunction perfected in Aries in 1702, 1 year into Prussia's life. And so there we get into another Saturn Neptune conjunction too. So like obviously it's not during this chart, but it happens immediately after the Saturn Neptune conjunction here. So that's like just another case of the Saturn Neptune conjunction where we got to look out for what's going on in Germany. Oh, you know what? I don't even think I have that up here. Okay, cool. Sorry about that. All right, and then yeah, and then I think it's like Otto von Bismarck, I believe, if I'm because we're just using Bismarck in this, but I'm pretty sure his name was Otto von Bismarck, Otto von Bismarck. But and then he would later choose this date, January 18th, to found the Second Reich 170 years later. So he's obviously part of the Second Reich, because Prussia just you got the First Reich, which is like the Holy Roman Empire. Or I think this is the first. Oh God, I don't know, guys. This is like just like you were saying, Sedona Angel. I gotta get my Reichs in order, but no. So that will be the next one. We'll kind of get into the Second Reich. I know the Second Reich is here though, because I have it labeled. So that's 1871. So this would be the First Reich or something. All right. The Saturn-Neptune conjunction comes back to the Prussian seed degree for the first time in over 3 centuries. The question of German unity and will reopens. So, Königsberg's fate echoes too. Bombed flat in 1945, emptied of its people, renamed Kaliningrad. This is what I kind of told you guys at the beginning. Today, that Russian enclave sits wedged between NATO members. So it's a live strategic flashpoint here. And this is the thing that really got me as Kaliningrad came in to the conversation when I was just listening about German will to power and I heard what was done about it. I'm like, first of all, I want to look at the chart of Kaliningrad. And then going deeper into that, I'm like, oh, well, one of like the charts essentially like of the country of Germany, of one of the previous versions, was done in Kaliningrad. So then it's like, okay, there's a huge part of Königsberg / Kaliningrad that's really going to be interesting here, especially when we're dealing with all this NATO stuff. That's what really strikes me on all this, is we're dealing with all this NATO talk, going back and forth with it. Germany's a big part of it all. Another thing I think people don't know, which is so interesting, is with Germany, they actually, did you guys know that a bunch of the nuclear material, or I should say a fair amount of the nuclear material, but actually the deployment systems for nuclear weapons they were made, the ones that Israel has, to be specific, they were made by Germany. I find that to be fascinating. And that was something I only found out like a couple weeks ago from one of my favorite scholars, Joseph Farrell, as he researches like these time periods, the time period of World War II, the Civil War, all that. And he's just incredible. And he'll talk about the things no one wants to talk about. But yeah, and he even pulls up news reports where this was happening, where they tried to kind of slide it by and not really tell anyone. But so that's another interesting thing. But all right. And then Napoleon ends the First Reich. So in 1806, after crushing the old powers at Austerlitz, Napoleon forced the 1,000-year Holy Roman Empire to dissolve. The humiliation gave birth to modern German nationalism, the hunger for revenge. So this kind of gets into what I was talking to you guys about, this push and pull between the German will to power. The hunger for revenge that Bismarck would answer in 1871. The sky was precise, a Saturn-Uranus conjunction in Libra. The old structure, ruptured by a sudden force, fell exactly opposite Otto's Mars and onto Charlemagne's war points. The transit that ended the First Reich struck its founding charts directly. So, yeah, I don't have Otto's. Well, this is Otto's Mars, so this would be King Otto the First, his coronation. So that's his Mars. we've got the First Reich here. Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. I wouldn't say, I mean, it's in the same sign right there, but then that was, well, and then this is actually, we're talking about 1806 here, so not 17. Okay. And then, yeah, so I don't actually have a chart for that one because this is just ending of the First Reich, so. Okay. Interesting. Okay, and then you get the Second Reich in 1870. Well, yeah, yeah. Okay, cool. Just keeping that straight for you guys. All right. So we'll land on this chart right now. But yeah, this so I was gonna pull up a chart for it, but yeah, but this is just Saturn Uranus conjunction in Libra, and then we already went over all these Libra things that happen with Germany over the years. So that's just really interesting there. So you got that, and then the old structures got broken by force, exactly opposite Otto's Mars. That's what it was. I was reading a little too fast. Yeah, and so I did just pull up that chart. We'll pull it up again, but oh, whoops, that's Twitter. But yeah, this is Otto's chart, and then this is gonna be opposite that. So that event that happened when Napoleon came in 1806. Like I said, I'm like I know it was like the later 1700s, like 1806. That was the opposition to that, and then you see the whole thing like fall apart. And this is kind of, you've already got the Grand Cross, and then these two, the Jupiter, and then these are both in air signs of Libra. So Uranus comes in, it throws off this part of the chart, and then all of a sudden it's at opposition to this part of the chart, and it really like focuses that Grand Cross that we've got. And that's of course going to be the First Reich, or I guess this would technically be the First Reich. That's Otto's coronation. This is the First Reich. And then there we go. All right, now we get to go to 1871 to the Second Reich, guys, okay? After failed revolutions of 1848, Bismarck united Germany through 3 swift wars. The empire was proclaimed in 1871, not in Berlin, but in the Hall of Mirrors at Versailles. The site was deliberate. The same room would host the 1919 treaty that humiliated Germany in turn. 2 ceremonies, 1 hall, a cycle of revenge running both directions. And so that's the thing. We're not going to pull up that chart, but that's like just crazy, that you've got the same treaty 2 times, and then you have it running in through the actual thread itself of like really the German nationalism coming back, like not wanting to be humiliated and all that. And we're going to see that return. And there is a humiliation that Germany has gone through recently. All right. So you can see here, we've got another case of Neptune in Aries. Okay. And then we've got that Saturn in Capricorn. And so that's going to be aspecting with the Capricorn stuff we've looked at thus far. Not necessarily aspecting, but I mean, it's in the same sign there, and then you've got all this here. So we'll actually pull up the chart here. Yeah, Capricorn stellium. Sun, Mercury, Saturn. This is where we really get into the underlying Saturnian stuff. We've had some of that already, but this is where we're really going to get into the underlining Saturnian stuff. Oh, wait, it is this one. Yeah, so you've got Mercury retrograde. Oh, that's fascinating, right? And then that's actually conjunct with the Sun at 28 degrees Capricorn. You got the South Node in Capricorn as well, and you've got Saturn Capricorn on 2 opposite ends of Capricorn here. And then what is it with these eclipses, guys? And I'm actually going to be keeping an eye on eclipses where it comes into relation with Germany's chart, because you've got a solar eclipse at 0 degrees 31 minutes of Capricorn right there too. And so that would have happened with the Sun being all the way up here. That happened fairly recently, but it's like been some time. So, that's, what? It's been like about a month, a little less than a month since that eclipse happened, if it happened there. So, unless it's like the next year, it could be like that too. It could be the next year, but really after a year, you're getting the eclipses, they're going to start changing. So, but the North Node is about, it was probably about a year before, because with the nodes right here. Yeah, it looks like a gigantic arrow, right? That's the thing, and all pointing towards the Capricorn energy. And then here, and remember, guys, we were talking about how this is going to be quite a bit after the defeat of Napoleon, but they carried that defeat with them for a long time. And this is a defeat around like the networks that they have, because this is in the 11th house. This is an accurate time for this, like a very accurate time. So this is in the 11th house, and first of all, it's going to bring in the Aquarian energy, which we know is just already big going. And then you even have Venus in Aquarius too. So that's really interesting there. But there's like this healing that they need to do around the identity, around their will to power, the German will to power, which deals with the identity of the German nation. This is where we see German nationalism start to rise up in them, start the process of healing themselves as a nation in that way after the defeat by Napoleon, and rising and being proud of themselves. And then this is that opposition with their Mars, the Mars in Libra. And now you got to remember that this Mars in Libra, this is aspecting all the Libra stuff. What is it going to be from Charlemagne? Look at that. You got this coming back. Like, what can we want to return to this? And then even with Otto, having the Neptune in there, we like, these are the things they're wanting to return to. But there's a fantasy about it too. There's a fantasy about it because of where it's sitting. It's actually within orb, I believe. Here it was within orb. It's like within orb right there of the Neptune right there, which is going, and that's trining all those Aquarian placements. So this is, you can see that this is them coming back from it. This is the first step of them really coming back and rebuilding what it means to be the German people. And there's some incredible stuff going on in this time period too. I read a bit lightly on it. North Node in Cancer right there. And this speaks to, and with the lunar eclipse in Cancer too, we've got the moon up here where it comes to belief, and then this is the house of Libra, the 7th house. So it's going to deal with agreements. How many years? Between what? Or are you asking for years between these two charts, between the Second Reich? Just let me know. And then, but yes, and Sirius is there too. But yeah, North Node and Cancer. So it's like, okay, we need to like really revitalize the homeland. Well, I pulled up a couple different charts here, just for PMS. I was asking here in the chat. So this is the Second Reich, 1871. And then when I went back to the stuff where we had that Libra action going on, specifically this one where the Mars from the Second Reich is right next to the Neptune here. I mean, that's like what would that, almost 2,000 years? I think it's like 1,800 years. About 1,800 or 800 years, excuse me. Yeah, 800 years, excuse me. Like rough, because you've got like, it's about like 800, 900 years. Yeah, 962. But then you're also working with the Julian calendar versus the Gregorian calendar. This is in Gregorian calendar for the Second Reich, 1871. This is the Holy Roman Empire, the crowning of King Otto. I think it's the first. And then that's 962 Julian. Which, I mean, it's not going to throw off too terribly much, but, you got a couple years of leeway after the drift from that amount of time. Because I think it was about the 1600s we went into Julian. Or we went into Gregorian and we left Julian behind, rather. Yeah, but that Libra stuff is incredible. And then, of course, you got Uranus going retrograde. Not in orb to the lunar eclipse, but there is something to be said about the lunar eclipse having happened in Cancer there, too. So there's going to be change around the homeland, change in the revitalization. And then, yeah. Well, and then, I kind of went over most of that. Well, I guess I could go into, this is really where you see the Gemini energy start to really enter the picture. Also, like, I think we had, like, did we even have any Gemini stuff before this? Yeah. Yeah, and I was going to say I didn't see any Gemini stuff before this. So, yeah, this is where you start to see the Gemini stuff enter the picture. Oh, the eclipse in that era, I'd be guessing on the eclipse, but with the nodes having almost fully traversed, it seems like the eclipse were like roughly about a year before this happened, before in the Second Reich chart here. It seems like the eclipses were about a year before this actual event. Because like, but I don't think we went back into eclipse season is the thing. or because if you look, these eclipses are like at early degrees, but then you've got the node is like already traversed like quite a bit of the ways through. Like it's retrograded, obviously it's going to retrograde through, but it's traversed quite a bit of the way through. Or wait, I'm going this way. Or, okay, but even still, so I'm thinking it was like 8 months to like maybe a year since the last. Because I mean, eclipse season is going to be like twice a year, and then there's the drift. I've actually only just started learning about that, so I can guess it more precisely. And then even just to have some fun and look back here, the eclipses for the Holy Roman Empire. I don't know if this might be what you meant. They were in Scorpio and Taurus for those eclipses, and that would have been pretty close, I think. To this day, it would have been pretty close, just from the nodes and looking at everything. It looks like, and where's the sun at? Solar. Yeah, this would have been within like a few months. Let's see here. Okay, German Reich. Yeah, Gemini. Oh, yeah, and that's another fun thing here. We got this as a Gemini rising too. So, but yeah, I said you got the Jupiter there. That's where really the technology. I mean, the technological aspect's always been there because of the Aquarian thing, but this is going to deal with the collective. It's going to be dealing with innovators in technology and stuff. But this is kind of where you see the Gemini stuff enter the picture, which is going to work really well with the energy too of like the industrialization, all that. Like you, both energies are going to work well with it, but Gemini is just a different kind of vibe when it comes to technology. It's much more innovative. I would say. I don't know. I'm trying to think of this on a mundane scale. I'm over here thinking of yeah, because it's mutable. So that's kind of what I would think too, especially when you're dealing with this positive aspect to this uh, German will to power placement that I keep bringing up with Neptune and Aries right there. Gemini rising is the fractitious Germany field, a brilliant divided body of politic of Catholic socialist minorities held together by a force of will, and that's the aspect we just looked at, body of politics, and also Jupiter rules politics too, because it's the ruling planet of Sagittarius there, so it's going to rule that politics. You got the divide there in the politics. It's already a Gemini ascendant, and then this positive sextile to the German will to power, which is going on to here. Brilliant divided body of politic Catholic socialist minorities held together by force of will, by the German will to power or force of will. Since it's a 28-degree Capricorn, which is the very degree of Prussia's sun. And so remember that we've already got, I wasn't even starting to get into all that, but yeah, we've got all this Capricorn stuff again. And then you had that Capricorn sun too. Same degree between Prussia, and then they go through the defeat with Napoleon. It's like they're shaking hands. I know, really. I love that. I like that. But yeah, you got the 28-degree. You got like kind of the introduction of the Capricornian energy. But remember when I was looking at this, I'm like, these energies aren't really landing right, guys. And then because of that, you see the residual fallout is the defeat of Napoleon, which happens in 1806. Defeat by Napoleon, rather. And then their rebuilding comes in. You're leaning more on the Capricorn energy, and you're getting these aspects that are landing a bit better. Now you still got the wedge here. I'm like, I think it's called something else, but we're gonna call it a wedge for now. You still got that wedge that's going on, but and it's exactly on the opposite side too, which is kind of funny, you know. But and then you even got those, yeah. You got like some supporting stuff too. A little bit more support on this chart, I would say, because if you include that trine there, but then yeah, and then the Mars that ends up being where we already looked at. That goes back to Charlemagne and all that stuff in positive aspect. So there is a kind of this back to, okay, we're gonna have like one person in charge, all this, and then that's gonna really move us to the Weimar Republic, though. Second Reich, once Germany became Europe's strongest power, the world mobilized against it, the alliance system that produced the First World War. And so we aren't doing the First World War chart or anything like that. Which is funny because I actually know a lot about the First World War, but we're just gonna do the power that came in afterwards. I know more about the First World War than I do the Second World War, actually, which is kind of funny. Um, Today, Germany is again rearming to lead Europe militarily. The same hegemonic anxiety returns. A strong Germany unsettles the continent, and the continent responds. And what? And who are we going to see who's responding to that? Is that going to be Russia? We've seen that in the past with all these charts that we went over. Russia and Germany, they've very much been at odds. Whether it was uh, Russia and Austria, Hungary, like all these different. There was because let's look at Catherine the Great. She was Austrian, and then she ended up, in order for them to have peace and as a show of good faith and as an actual alliance that was made between Russia and Austria, like that was where that marriage came in, and she dealt with a lot of stuff. That's for sure, Catherine the Great. But then this is where you get people like Voltaire and she was pen pals with him. They never actually met though. People have that like misconception. I think they even put that in the new TV show, Catherine the Great. But they do say in the TV show this is like not entirely accurate because it's a little bit of a comedy. All right. Let's see here. And then 1918. This is the Weimar Republic. So this is the republic born in crisis. Defeat in 1918 brought abdication, the stab in the back myth, the punishing 1919 treaty, hyperinflation. Then you have the crash that comes on later too, in 1929, which makes it even worse. So let's actually just look at that here, and then we get into like Wagner. I think I said Weber earlier instead of Wagner, but there's a philosopher named Weber too. Yeah, so Weimar Republic. So this is really going to deal with the essentially like the defeat. So I guess I do have like something here that's working with World War One. And then with this one, you've got the North Node in Sag. That's really interesting. That's actually my placement. I think it's like 1 degree off from mine or something, or like 2 degrees. Let's see here. We got, oh, interesting, a Scorpio sun. So it is going to deal with the repression. The Weimar Republic comes in, and it's like really to repress the people. And you got Sun conjunct Venus right there, because it's a luminary. So you can give it that wider orb. Sun conjunct Venus. These are both coming down here. They're trining Jupiter in Cancer too. So too much suppression at home, too much sexual things going on at home, because you got to remember with the Weimar Republic, this is where the transgenderism, the homosexuality, all of these things were being allowed to run under the scenes, behind the scenes, under the surface. Very Scorpio here, and it's even in the 8th house there too, with the way you get these housing placements. That's so interesting because it's the fall, so you've got this tilt of the earth going on here. These really big first houses, which makes sense to have a wide first house, have a Chiron in there where they've just been damaged in an ego way because of the fantasies they had about the war, the fantasies they had about the country and all that stuff. Huge damage coming in square to Mars, where you're going to see their will of power coming in. And then that's going to be in the 10th house, almost like this will gets folded to extract all of the work out of them, all of the energy out of them. And then there at least is a trine going on here where there is some cognizance that comes back around. You do get this being in Sagittarius in the first, really, I mean, you can almost round it up to 1 degree. It's 55 minutes there. But you got that coming into Sag in the 9th house. So, I mean, there's at least some self-awareness that comes in, like, oh, like this is why we lost the First World War. This is what we've suffered. But then there's a huge damage that comes in, especially with it being retrograde too, and self-reflection that comes in from this Chiron at the anaretic degree at Pisces. So there's a huge lie that they're coming to terms with, that does have to deal with their identity that came in. Another interesting thing here, you've got Uranus on the ascendant too. This was never going to be like stable. This is never going to be something. You're not going to keep the people down, in opposition to Saturn. That's it's a Saturnian nation here. So you got that in opposition there, in Leo too. So you're not going to keep the people down. You're not going to keep like the way, remember Leo is like it's the king, and it's ruled by the sun. So you think with that opposition, like you're going to keep the people down. You're going to keep the people from shining, from being proud of their national pride. Like it's not going to last for a long time. On top of that, you got Neptune in there too. And so like, with that square coming in, it's like the ways that they're trying to make the nation, and have it just, I mean, it was a the Weimar Republic was crazy, guys. Like some people have no conceptualization of like how scorpionic things got and how much was really going on under the surface behind the scenes, because it wasn't even just the transgenderism stuff and the rampant homosexuality and like call men. And guys, we're talking about this in 1918. Okay, this is a very different time. But then you're also dealing with the underage stuff. Like that was even a big thing that was going on. And it's crazy when you hear some of the stories from the Weimar Republic. It's just wild. But then we of course North and South Node. We're still. I think is safe to say. This is safe to say it's been about a year since the last eclipse. When you're looking here, yeah, been about a year since the last eclipse, and so that's where these eclipses had happened. Or I guess nothing's aspecting these eclipses except for an inconjunct that goes up to this stuff here, and so this is supposed to be about this play off of what's going on. Where we saw in the last chart that the Gemini energy entered the fold. Well, look at that at like 17 degrees, solar eclipse here at 17 degrees. That happened right on top of the Jupiter right there. And this is where, like I said, the Gemini stuff entered the fold. So, I mean, really, that eclipse is like coming up on when you're dealing with the first house of Jupiter. It's even dealing with the identity. They took out all debate, all discussion of ideas and stuff like that. It's in the third house too, all discussion of ideas. And then it really just replaced it with something that was not sustainable at all. Loveology terror. Make Germany gay again. Oh my God. Hey, Sedona Angel. But yeah, I mean, that's just incredible. Like, I didn't even really, this isn't even something I noticed when I first was on here. Yeah, that 17-degree Jupiter Gemini, and then the solar eclipse when the Weimar Republic comes in after the defeat from World War One, right there. And then of course, we already went over. I mean, South Node by extension is just going to be there, because that's where the solar eclipse was, but just gives you a little bit more precision. Pluto and then look at this, guys, on top of this. No aspect going on to this, but on top of all this stuff I've been saying with the scorpionic energy, the stuff at home, Plutonian going on, because Pluto in Cancer right now. So you're even dealing with that. And it's actually still a pretty fresh conjunction to like pretty fresh ingress. You know what I mean? Like it's within the first year or two or something. Because if you think about it now, we've got Pluto at 5 degrees. Is it still 5 degrees? Right? And what are we, like 2 years in to the Pluto Aquarius transit that we have right now, the ingress. So this was still pretty early on, and so you can see that that's how the vibe shifted in Germany. There's even a slide I have with like astrocartography. I'm not gonna like find it's in here somewhere, I'm sure, but yeah, it was also a furnace of genius. The Bauhaus, Berlin's avant-garde, the philosophy that would be both used and abused. Schopenhauer, of course, I believe Schopenhauer had that great. Didn't he make the play slash musical that was the Lord of the Rings is essentially based off of it in a loose way, but it's like the I swear it's like called it's something similar to that. Yeah, okay, PMSO, you know what I'm talking about. It's like a 4-part or a 3-part thing and it's like the story about the rings, and it was so cool that I just learned this recently too. So this was part of that German will to power thing I was going on a deep dive on. That was really cool. Hey, what's up, Liz Wolfenstein? What up, girl? Good to see ya. It was also a furnace of genius. Oh yeah, I did that. Yeah, Schopenhauer, Wagner, and then Nietzsche. And then so we got Republic of Will and Longing, Scorpio Sun, born in crisis, transformation. Yeah, and then there's the transformative aspect of what the war brought them through. There's the crisis part. Uranus is in Aquarius is radical experiment, and it was democracy, modernity or modernism, and revolution all at once. And then Saturn, Neptune, and Leo. Let's look here. Oh yeah, so this actually came out of this, even though So remember, I was saying, so even when Pluto ingressed, that really planted the seed. Pluto ingressed like about 2 years prior, and then you would have had this the Saturn Neptune conjunction, and that I would even argue that's when they started losing. Because I actually know a bit about World War II, and so that would have been like in 1916. That would have been when it started taking a turn pretty harshly for the Germans, and then you would have had the Saturn Neptune conjunction. I had this old history. I'll link it in the chat, but I had this old World War II or World War One, excuse me, history thing during COVID, and it relaxed me. So I used to always play it on loop when I would sleep, and so I just like I actually remember quite a bit about World War One. But yeah, Saturn, Neptune, and Leo carry the era's deepest ache, the longing for a redemptive leader, the philosophy named it Übermensch, the politics that would answer with a man who claimed to be one. And I think for people watching this, a great deal of you will know about the Übermensch, or the some would translate it as Superman, some would translate it as Overman, but it essentially deals with I mean it's essentially alpha energy. You know, it's just like being an alpha, being the master of of your different domains, being good at this and that, you know, like being very athletic and having great genetics to go on top of the athleticism, being very smart. And then to go with your natural smarts, you also just like educate yourself and learn things, being a you know, this is the idea of the Ubermensch. And then you want to have a society of people like this to really create the best society. And so this is kind of where these seeds are planted through these philosophers, and then this comes up and really this is a while ago that a lot of these philosophers were planting these seeds, but this is where it starts to take a lot of prominence here in the Weimar Republic, and it even gets back into the Scorpio energy too, and all the Sagittarian stuff where there is this belief for something more and all that, but it's just like at odds, it's at conflicts and with a lot of this stuff. And this would be, as far as I know, this would be is this a sextile or is this a semi? I almost want to say this is a semi-square. That would make sense if that's a semi-square. It really would. But yeah, like you just really get into all that. Democracy under pressure. Weimar shows what happens when democracy is squeezed from both extremes and a frightened public begins to ache for a strong man to end all the chaos. Today's echo is unmistakable. So yeah, and then we've got this echo in today. So the AFD party, near 29%, the firewall's cracking, put up the old poll towards a single decisive answer. So the lesson of Weimar is precisely how fragile the center can become. No tight outer planet transit strikes the Weimar chart right now. It's the warning held in memory, not the live wire. And then let's even just take a look back at here too. You know, the thing, there is no active transit right now, but there's going to be. I mean, we've got some minor transits. There's a Jupiter return that we just came in aspect to. And then I would even argue that Jupiter return was this last, Nietzsche was heavenly, sorry, I'm just reading chat, guys. Nietzsche was heavily influenced by Schopenhauer early in life, but eventually rejected Schopenhauer's pessimism. Yeah, and that's the thing. I even brought that up at the beginning of this because I was talking about Nietzsche, Wagner, there was even like a guy Weber and like all of them, and then there was the German will to power, and then there was another will to something else, and Nietzsche's essentially was more of an optimistic take on these principles. And I know I think it was Wagner, or Kant actually too, and it might have been between Kant and I think it was Kant actually, Kant and Nietzsche, going back and forth between these different wills and what they think comes forward and all that. But Nietzsche was the more optimistic one and Kant was the more pessimistic one, if I remember right. Because I just like kind of briefly went into this stuff. I'm going to revisit it though. I'm really interested now in revisiting this stuff. Oh yeah, we've got the AFD near 29%. Oh yeah, that's what I was going to say, by the way, is Jupiter's now coming up on Leo here, and the south node is going to cross Saturn for the chart of the Weimar Republic. So I think over this summer, we're going to start to see things. Here's a prediction here. Over this summer, I think we're going to start seeing very similar to the Weimar Republic moment as Jupiter comes over Neptune, and then as the south node comes over Saturn, and you're going to really see the structures are going to break down, because I would be even interested to see how the Weimar Republic connects over here. Kant is one of the intellectual giants whose ideas helped shape German philosophy and culture long before Weimar. Yeah. Because Kant, if I remember right, was more around. Would it be the Second Reich? Would it be? I think it's. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it'd be closer to the Second Reich or Prussia. I'd almost want to say it's closer to Prussia. You probably would remember off the top of your head, though, PMSO. Because when I was learning about this, I wasn't getting years, but they were going really deep on Kant versus Nietzsche. 1804. Okay, so it was. Oh, so it's like kind of smack dab in between. Okay. Yeah, like right in between these two. Um, oh yeah, and so so for here we've got. Oh wait, this is the third reg for the Weimar. Okay. Um, yeah, we've got. So for this is kind of my prediction here is the South Node is going to be crossing over Saturn. I mean, that's going to be pretty close. It might even be exactly on Saturn when the next elections are coming up. So South Node on Saturn, and then at that point, Jupiter's going to be it's going to be fairly close to Neptune. It'll be retrograding by then. It might not be. It'll be close to retrograding, so it'll be slowing. And so I'm thinking it's going to station pretty close to Neptune right there in Leo. And as far as what this does for Germany, this will get into my greater predictions, which we've only got like two more charts to glance at. Then I'll go over my predictions and close out. But this is really part of my predictions for Germany. I think there's going to be. It's not this in particular that makes me think there's going to be some violent extremism, specifically by the immigrants that they've brought in because of the election, and which I think that the AFD will win this election. I do. But it's going to take down a lot of these structures because this Weimar Republic structure, I bet, is pretty similar. What's going on here? We got Pluto and Leo there, which is interesting, especially considering like what the Weimar Republic represents. So you get that Pluto and Leo. Yeah, I mean, it's almost like it went underground or less noticeable too. The whole idea of the control of the German people, because this is your second chart that has the control of the German people, and then the chart in between is the Third Reich right here, and then this is where I'm talking about this contraction and expansion of the will to power, the shutting down, and then like re-unfolding this centralization, decentralization, this ebb and flow, this heartbeat of the German people that's going on between all of these charts. And I mean, with this I can't wait for this. We're gonna like just kind of dive right into this chart here, but no, I do think that's something that's happening later this year. It's gonna be crazy with the elections. 1933, how a fringe took power. And I don't know if it was so much of a fringe, guys. I mean, I guess. I don't. It's the thing is like this. My AI wrote this, and I was really having to like mess with my. I was really having to mess with stuff. I don't know why this says. Oh, okay. Um, I was having to mess with my AI because I started to like put in some things, and it was like, well, like I refuse to do that for you because you're talking bad about Jewish people, and I was like, am I? Where did I put that in? And it was like this allegory between like the bankers and like Jews essentially, like, and it was something that Hitler like was doing. Not to say this isn't me being like a Holocaust denier or anything, but it's just to like kind of get more into. I was diving into the idea a little bit, and it was just like my AI just gave me some sass for the first time. Just like I refuse to put that because your audience is like not smart enough to handle it, and they may get violent against Jews. And I'm just like, oh my god, like tell me a Jewish person made this AI without telling me, and I know they did. So it's just like, okay, whatever. So there's like a little stuff like this, like how a fringe took power. Were they really a fringe? I mean, kind of, but like people had to go along with things too, and people had a reason to go along with things. I just think that's important to say, and that's not me justifying it at all. Like I don't want people to get the wrong idea. I actually just got done watching uh, the boomer versus millennial debate that Owen Schroyer was a part of. From hashtag walk away is like what the guy names the thing, the guy who was running the interview. But it really got into this. Is it was like the divide right now between the boomers and millennials in the political sphere is about like, are we allowed to criticize Israel? And like all the boomers were trying to accuse the millennials of being anti-Semitic, and it's like, no, we're just gonna like, let's just have an actual conversation about this, and like not have it to where my speech is being policed. So like, and so you already see it coming forward in the present day times, how both this Third Reich chart and the Weimar Republic chart are going to really start to be activated here. Yep, AI is already starting to control the flow of information. Yeah, Liz Wolfenstein. Oh my goodness, that's exactly that's the thing that I on my Trinity of Convergence series, the Uranus and Gemini one, this is the cycle that I identified, is that they like the floodgates open up first with new technology coming in, and then they clamp down on it with each of these new technologies in different phases. And it's, yeah, and we can already see it starting to happen, but there's still something they need from us, from the AI, in order to train it. So that's why they haven't clamped down as hard as they could clamp down. That's my opinion, at least. The army's hand is real. In 1919, it sent Hitler as an informant to monitor the tiny party he would later seize. In 1934, he purged his own parliamentary to win the generals. The handlers became the handled. And so, what he's talking about is the Night of Long Knives. And that would have been fun to do a chart for that, but I definitely need to start to finish up here. The Night of Long Knives, though, was where all the people who supported Hitler, they were all essentially killed. You know, like there was just a they all got together and they took him out, so there would be no rivals to the power essentially, and then Hitler could become chancellor. Oh, okay, I'll try that PMSO. I know it started doing that right towards the end of everything, and I'm like, well, I kind of got what I needed. I'll just remember to mention this, and yeah, so I'll see if it can do that, because it was like my AI is pretty pleasant to me. It's not a yes man. Like I tell it to really like push back on information and steel man my arguments. But holy moly, like I've never seen it push back like it did when I like, because I essentially put in the transcription of someone talking, someone who is accused of being a Holocaust denier, but they're not. But I put in the transcription of one of their lectures in to supplement some of this information, and like it just like got violent with me. It was like, oh my god, we can't say any, like I refuse to put any. I'm like, well, first of all, I wasn't asking you to put that in, first of all. Like it was just crazy. The old elite believed they could use him as a front man and contain him. They were comprehensively outplayed, and this is kind of the thing that you see coming up with the stuff with Hitler, is that it seems like the whether you want to call it the bankers, the elites, and all that, they did get him into power, and then hand in hand with the army that was there. And remember, this is coming out of the controlled Weimar Republic, and then he turned against them. This is really what it seems like. This is something I'll definitely go deeper on and revisit on, but at least from the history I went over, I re-went over in my 20s, that seems to be, that's like the conclusion that I came to. And I mean, a lot of this does actually have to do with Jewish people. Now, does that mean you turn and you round them all up and put them in camps? No. Does that mean 6 million were killed? I mean, it should be a discussion we're able to have. I think and the fact is, like, I can't sit here and deny that on camera without getting some type of massive hit. You know what I mean? So yes, it was 6 million Jews that died in the Holocaust. I have to say that for YouTube, of course. As a matter of fact, I think it was more. I think it was 7 million. So um, they were comprehensively outplayed, though. Yeah. And then this is where the unity of will gets like weaponized here. This is where we finally see it fully unlock in the chart with these placements we have. We've got that the Oh, well, first of all, we've got the Neptune Saturn conjunction again. Remember, that was the big thing we're looking out for, Saturn Neptune conjunctions. And then also, Uranus goes on to the Neptune of 1871, which would be was that the Prussian chart, I believe? 18, or was that, I think Prussian's 17. 1871 is the Second Reich. Yeah, and then, so let's go to the Third Reich here. Third Reich. And then you've got, well, first of all, look at that grand kite, guys. Look at that grand kite. That's like awesome. So you've got a grand kite, and that's going on with Chiron in the first house of Taurus. So this is about rebuilding our identity with the Third Reich coming into power. We're going to rebuild our identity around actual like German nationalism, and then you've got this, and it's going to be around being industrious. Because look at this, you got the not only the kite itself all pointing towards this, but a grand trine that's in play with all the earth signs here. And it's about, we're going back to, and really this starts to get into Aquarius here. So there's your Aquarian energy. It's 10th house though, so it's Capricornian as well. You get the Capricornian energy with that, with people being in lockstep, people being able to synchronize everything. And that's what you saw in the Third Reich, Germany. That's what you saw right there. But then you do have Venus actually in Capricorn, and that's in the ninth house. And that gets into those Venus placements that we had that were in Sagittarius before. This kind of gets back into like we're gonna take our beliefs back, our belief in ourself, our belief in everything. This is the way where, besides the actual stuff that happened in the war and the atrocities from all sides on the war, this is where you can say like you saw it actually reflect. I mean, I'm almost scared to say like in a healthy way, but like they really did have pride in their country. That's, you can say whatever you want to about the war, but they had some motherfucking pride in their country during this period of time. Holy moly. This all kind of, you got these trines that come from here. They go down to Mars and Jupiter. And I would, and then is, yeah, nothing here hitting Neptune here. But then this gets into Virgo. And we had a lot of the Virgo stuff in prior charts going on here, like Uranus and Virgo for the Holy Roman Empire. So like there is something there. South Node in Virgo. Also had the solar eclipse in Virgo. Oh wait, no, South Node is in. Yeah, yeah. Okay, I'm just making sure I'm looking at it right. I'm like, oh, am I looking at this backwards? I always get confused with the nodes. I want to look at things backwards with them. But yeah, okay. So yeah, Virgo and Pisces, North Node and Pisces, that is. But then you also had the eclipses going on there. This was like, oh, this is gonna be, if I'm doing the math on this, the last eclipse. Does it say down here? Oh, it just says down here. Why am I over here guessing? I'm like a tard, guys. It literally just says it here. Okay. You had it in August and September of the prior year. So they're only a few months old. Okay. But yeah, you've got Neptune, Mars, and Jupiter there. And so that really, I mean, that just really gets into it for you. Neptune, Mars, Jupiter. And then where's you know what? Maybe this is, okay, and then, oh, that's okay. It's Saturn and the Sun. I didn't even. Oh, Neptune's up here. My bad, guys. I thought it was one of the other Saturn Neptune conjunctions. This is a Saturn Sun conjunction in Aquarius. My bad. I just want to correct that from earlier. Oh, cool. I didn't know you have a grand. I feel like I should know that, Sedona Angel, that you have a grand kite, but it's so much of what I know about your chart just from us talking back and forth is like I have it in my head. I have the placements in my head. And so I'm not like I'm not always pulling up your chart because we just talk about it. I didn't realize you have a grand kite. That's so cool. Yeah, but then here we go back to that Aries energy. Uranus and Aries, and then the moon in Aries too. So I mean that's really bringing, and then also there's the revolutionary energy of Aquarius, of Uranus too. So you've got all this all this revolutionary energy up here of what we're thinking, what we're communicating, the structures we're building, the things that we're leaving behind, even because when they die, when you die, what do you leave behind? You leave behind your bones. That's why Saturn rules the bones. This is why it rules the tombstone. It's the things that you leave behind when you die. So it's like there's a, and it, I think you can see what they've left behind after the death of the Third Reich. And then the sun in there too. And I mean, it really makes sense for it to be an Aquarian sun. I mean, it is about the collective. There's the synchronization with it, even having that Mercury there too. And the synchronization in systems, in leadership, in the communication style, in the way of thinking, and all that. And then even looking at like this opposition goes to Pluto. I mean, if you disagree, you're going to go somewhere where no one's ever going to see you, somewhere that's hidden, that no one's ever going to see you. And it's in Cancer, the fourth house. So it's like, and this is another accurate time here. So that's kind of where you get the whole idea of, I mean, camps, if you want to say that, you know. I mean, it was because it was more than just Jewish people being sent to them. It was more like political dissidents and stuff like that too. I mean, if we want to, we won't even start to talk. This is like the kind of conversation I need to have on Rumble to really do it any justice. You know, I have to like, kind of be a little bit careful because it's like, oh, hate speech, but no. But I do find this Chiron to be the most interesting thing there. And oh, cool, I'm doing pretty good on time. Okay, because I thought I was running behind a little bit. Yeah, that Chiron having to deal with the identity, rebuilding a new identity too, coming into orb of the of Algol right there, coming into orb of Algol. That's interesting. Yeah, that's really interesting. So I mean, yeah, and I would even say the whole process of healing their identity made some people, you know, hate to be cliche with it, but lose their head. Made some people like, and like, in a literal way, but I more meant in a figurative way, where people got like way too into it and into the nationalism and stuff like that. And now you can argue for and against that either way, you know, and I like to have both of those arguments, but you know, that's something you can say. Now it's not in orb of the Pleiades, which is unfortunate because that could have lightened it up, you know, Alcyone and all these different stars of the Pleiades that you got there. But and then what else? I feel like I'm missing something. I mean, there's the conjunction. I went over that. I think I covered everything in this chart, really. I guess there's also these trines between the service. And I didn't even mention with the Virgo stuff. I just said we've got lots of Virgo stuff from the prior charts going on. But what is interesting to say on this chart is Virgo deals with the service and it deals with the daily work, you know? And then you got these aspects that go up here. I think you've got I think this would be sesquies, and these would be inconjuncts that go up here. But this is dealing with all the work and the just the, what is it, the industriousness, especially when you're looking at, that's how they healed themselves, is being an industrious nation. They made an identity about it, sure, and that's only an aspect of the Chiron, but we also just have the Taurus rising that's running here. So that really just brings that in, because they were some builders for sure. They started building some things. And they were really the most, what would you say, most industrialized nation at that time. I mean, what they were able to come out with and have the whole world stand against them and still do so well, it's incredible, honestly. It's really incredible. But that really gets to most of it. And then, but then, really the thing to look at is just that Neptune placement there. Already when you're dealing with the Mars-Neptune stuff with this chart, having those in there, they're not conjunct at least, but the Mars is conjoined with Jupiter there, which really amps that up. And so they had a lot of energy, but then it's like, where was the delusion standing at with all this stuff? Where was it coming from? And then I don't see any other, like, yeah, it's just the harsh aspects of like it kind of getting at odds with all that stuff I was talking about, the synchronization of the collective. I spent a little longer on the Third Reich chart than I thought, but hey, man, I'm never beating the allegations, right? Okay, Aquarius stellium, we went over that. Mass collective. Yeah, unity of will weaponized too. I don't even think I've read this yet, so I'm like, at least I'm reading the chart all right here, you know. The collective, the Volk synchronized as one, and then the Volk, I think that would be the people. Correct me if I'm wrong, and this is where Volkswagen comes from. Aquarius in its darkest key, the individual erased, and that's kind of, it even gets back into what I was saying with this chart just in general. It's like it really is the individual erased. And that's another thing that you could talk about with the Chiron in the first is going to be the identity of the chart, but then it's so overpowering with all this Aquarius energy. Yeah. And then even with the Virgo stuff, the Virgo is what really I think tops it off because Virgo's about service. You got Jupiter in there. And then it's like it's literally an erasing of the individual there that you have. And then even you get the inconjunct to Uranus there too. That's in Aries, which rules the individual, especially when you're looking on a mundane chart, because these are collective planets like Uranus, Neptune, all that. But yeah, Mars is an aspect to that. Okay, I don't want to spend too long there. Uranus sits at 19 degree Aries, exactly on the second Reich's Neptune. So this is where we get all this like fascinating stuff, and why it's so good to have all these charts handy. Second Reich, their Neptune right there, 19 degree Aries. And then you got the 19 degree Aries right here. And that comes up. So these are the kind of things I was seeing, and I'm like, let's like punch that shit in, guys, because it's just really incredible to see all of these. And then remember, we're skipping one of these contractions. There's the expansion and contraction, so we're skipping one of these. Where in between is the Weimar Republic. This is where you have the contraction of the will of the German people, the will to power, the identity of them, and everything like that. And then the expansion, and then connecting the expansion with the last expansion, which is the Second Reich, you've got that Neptune right there, where the Uranus comes in, and it throws that off. And then, Uranus deals with the collective too. So I'm happy I make a slideshow, because I just get into reading these charts, and I forget the things I found during my research. All right. Manufactured enemy. The propaganda fused three separate things: finance, capital, communism, and quote unquote the Jew into one imagined adversary. So every grievance pointed at a single target. That fusion was the engine of unity of will, which we keep referencing back. A humiliated will, our humiliated public handed one enemy to unite against. This was never symbolic. The ideology was racial and biological. See, this is kind of the thing. They insisted, my AI insisted they put this in here. This was symbolic. This was never symbolic. This doesn't stand as an allegory for anything. It was racial and biological. It meant Jewish people literally, and it ended in genocide. But of course, there's not a genocide going on right now, though. That's not a genocide. Let's be clear, guys, okay? We need to be very responsible with this information, okay? Okay? Like, I just can't, guys. This is the one thing that really pissed me off with my AI. It's like, I think I'm a big boy. I think I can handle it. So, what my collection is from this is like, there is something symbolic that you actually can tie to this in the terms that the world bankers are primarily Jewish. That is who Hitler got into the issues with, and then there's such a back and forth. It's like, why don't we let the astrology play itself out, see what gets revisited in the next few years about the Holocaust, and kind of go from there? Because I think everyone's at a point where they just don't really believe in a lot of things they've heard anymore. It's just, I'm right there with it. And I think if you're really tied to that, it's just kind of like, there are people who died in the Holocaust. Okay, cool, but the numbers they give, the math ain't mathin'. I'm sorry to say. I'm just like, that's where I stand on it, guys. I'm very open to changing my opinion on things. I'm so open to it, but this is just where I'm at right now. But to read the target as standing for elites is the very inversion the propaganda was built to produce. And so maybe I'm just a victim to the same type of propaganda now that the astrology is coming back around. Maybe I'm just a victim to that too. It could be. So I'm very open to these things, but it's like, we got to kind of understand where the cultural zeitgeist is. And like, these are the conversations that people are having right now. And we have to be like ready to actually have these conversations. Because it's like, on one hand, you've got here, it says Holocaust is among the most documented events in history. And on the other hand, You got people like who I think are very well read, like including which I didn't know until recently, Professor Zhang, because I've been kind of going through all of his lectures, and he's like, he said there literally that there's and I'm quoting someone, by the way, YouTube. He said that there's literally no concrete evidence for the Holocaust. And I'm like, well, he's a like I view him as a pretty rational person. I like the information he delivers me. Like he never misses on the information he delivers. I can go, I can verify it, I can find it to be true. But then for him to say something like that, I'm like, okay. So that kind of lines up with where I'm at a little bit. Like that. It's just I'm not liking the evidence around it. If you get into the post-war Nuremberg trials and the way it was run by Alan Dulles and his brother, the Dulles brothers, that's very interesting too. And it's almost like they manufactured a perception around the Holocaust. This is not me saying it wasn't real, but there's a certain perception that happened in the Nuremberg trials that was manufactured around the Holocaust. And that would make sense because of what you saw with the Nazis post-war coming in and being able to work with our people. It's like, okay, well, why on earth would you let like Nazis, if they're so bad, work with us? Well, maybe it's not as bad as we thought it was, and that's why they were able to work with us at NASA and like essentially run NASA and take over our rocket program. These are just things to think about. Is all I'm saying. So I just like to think about things. I like to measure them out, and I'm always open to changing my opinion. So, all right, but yeah, so Pluto is actually going to be crossing the Mercury and Saturn that we have on the Third Reich chart, I believe. Yeah. And I think I don't even know if I brought this up yet. I was thinking that when I first looked at it. It's already crossed the Mercury. It's going to cross the Saturn, and then by like in another year or two, in like 2 more years, it's going to cross that Sun. It might be one more year, and then it might retrograde back and forth, but pretty much over the next 3 years, which is a huge window I'm giving for a lot of these Germany predictions I'm going to give here at the end. So that's really incredible. All right, 1949, after occupation, denazification, and the Berlin blockade, West Germany was founded on a basic law deliberately built to make Weimar's failures impossible. So now we go back to the contraction of Germany, and we're like, well, we're going to make it better. But we see from the charts I have pulled up, how much better was it? Because you had to do a reunification of Germany again, And the reunification, it's not a country chart, it's an event chart. So it's something that happened that it was not actually resolved. It was the can being kicked down the road, is what we saw but we'll get into that. Militant democracy. Parties that threaten the order can be banned. A high bar for fringe parties, strong courts. This, not custom, is legal origin of the firewall around the far right today. And yeah, and that's the thing too. That's the thing we're also really going to see, especially so you got the chart right here. It's kind of got these placements. You got these Gemini placements over here. We're going back to the Libra placements again. This one's a Neptune in Libra. And so this is going to be First Republic of Germany. Okay, we got Neptune in Libra, 12 degrees. Well, what do we have going on in Libra again? It was back here. It was the coronation of Charlemagne, 10-degree Neptune Libra. So and then really the only difference is, let's actually see what's going on house-wise for this. In the 12th house. Yeah, so who's really in charge of Germany? There's someone in charge of Germany we don't know about. And I think it's so clear when you look at the kind of moves that Angela Merkel made when she was in charge, quote unquote. Yeah, and then South Node in the first house, which is ruling with the identity, the will to power, the will of the German people, all that in opposition to an Aries moon with the North Node. So it's like they're being held down by some unseen power. There was even an eclipse in there too. And there's some unseen power in there that's like holding them down, that's holding them in the past, and you see that, and maybe that gets resolved in the other chart. But Chiron and Sagittarius in the second house. So this is of course going to be post World War II. It's a second house Chiron. This is going to deal with all of the stuff that they lost, especially their fine art. So you look at Sagittarius and like the culture part of it. The fine arts. I mean, you can also, there's some of that belongs in Libra, but then you get into a belief thing, and yeah, exactly, the money that they lost too PMO. That was the next thing I was gonna go into. Is like the material things being second house. Like they lost all of their money. They were like looted all that stuff. But then like they lost a lot of their arts, a lot of their religious arts specifically too. Like these things that were that were tied to the identity of Germany on a material level. Their material goods that tie to their identity. They lost all that stuff. Like not all of it obviously, but a great deal of it was taken from them during the looting of Berlin. And I don't even know if it's called technically the looting of Berlin. I'm sure there's an event name for it when they like really went and took a lot of the stuff. But of course, like their reserves of gold, like that stuff was definitely taken. Like that was repatriated by the U.S. For freedom, of course, guys, for freedom. But yeah, and then we've got the sun, and then here's more Gemini stuff coming into the mix, guys. And then we even had this wasn't Gemini, but where was it? Where was that first Gemini? Oh, this is where Gemini entered the fold. Was the Second Reich. Now really got some Gemini coming in though. So you got Sun at 3 degrees, and then that 3 degree Sun, that's what's about to be aspected by Uranus here. I'm pretty sure Uranus is still at 2 degrees. It might have hit 3 degrees by now. I think it's still at 2 degrees. I know by the time we get to the Sag full moon, it's going to be at 3 degrees. So expect to see something there, especially because that full moon, I don't remember exactly the degree where that full moon is hitting. I don't know if anyone in chat can help me, but it's going to be in the same sign as what's it called here? As Chiron. So and you know we're still pretty early in. Yeah, I think it'll be within orb. I think it'll be within orb. Because if we get it out to, if that Sag full moon is at anywhere up to like 12 degrees, like just about like really more like 11 degrees, but 11 degrees, 11 minutes. Anything below that, then we'll have it within orb of that. So it's going to aspect Germany. Remember, this deals with politics too, and then they get no choice in their political. They're the way their country's going to go politically after the war ends. You know, because obviously, because that's kind of the way it goes. But this also speaks to the politics part of it that it goes under Sagittarius. And then you got Jupiter in Aquarius. That's 2 degrees. We've got some Aquarius stuff. We've got a lot of Aquarius stuff going on here. Was there anything at 2 degrees? We've got a Jupiter return of the Prussian chart on that. I'm not seeing, I mean, it's within orb of the sun, but that's at 28 degrees Capricorn. Oh, Raffi, wasn't it the Red Army that took the art, etc.? I don't know much about them. I just know that it's 9 degrees? No way. It's seriously at 9 degrees? Well, yeah, I guess yeah, we're within orb then. I mean, because I'm going to give a luminary 5 degrees, so I mean, we're definitely within orb. But no, I didn't know about the Red Army. Oh yeah, and Antares. Is Antares in is it in Sagittarius or in Scorpio? Antares. I know we were talking about it I guess it would be in Sagittarius. I was like reading chat while we talked about Antares during the last live stream. So I was like, I kind of missed some of the stuff they were talking about. I'm like, oh gosh, I hope they don't know I didn't hear some of that. Like, because I know we talked about it in the collab stream I did with Merlin and Esperanza. Yeah, and okay, so I'm like, do I have the right chart up? I'll need to add Antares. I meant to actually add that to my chart here. Yeah, and then North Node in Aries. North Node on top of, oh, whoa. Okay. I'm like, this wasn't an eclipse, was it? North Node on top of the moon, or the moon on top of the North Node. So you got that going on. This is in the 7th house. It's kind of, I view this as like kind of, you could view this as forcing relations with countries that they don't want to be related with, associated with. You could view it as that. You could view this as like, I don't know, maybe like an imposing of the will. I don't know if I'd go that far. I feel like you could get a better placement for that. Because, you know, the force of will is coming from a lot of this Aryan excuse me, this Aryan energy. The North Node is there with the moon there. But it's in the seventh house. It's like I would say it's almost like they became a bit toxic to the world. That's what I would say. They became a bit toxic to the world, and they felt that. They felt that pretty deeply because it's going to deal with their agreements and stuff like that. Yeah. And then yeah, and even the vertex in the same house though, but it's like maybe once they build something for themselves, that's where like the gifts can come in. The solar eclipse is right next to that vertex too, so the vertex had ended up being, or the eclipse had ended up being in Taurus there. That was April 28th. So it was a month prior to this. Interesting. So there was going to be a change around money and stuff for them, and then that eclipse. Yeah, there was a change, and then even at that time in the war, their agreements were changing a lot and stuff too. It's interesting, but yeah, this is, I mean, this is kind of where you see this shift from the Aquarian technological aspect to the Gemini technological aspect. The Gemini stuff had been seeded in charts before, but this is where we get a lot of Gemini. You get the stellium, you get the anaretic degree Uranus right there, which of course, when you're looking at that rulership being in Aquarius there, if you're going to use that rulership, then you know that really just speaks to the whole technological aspect, and they really kept up after this. I would even I wouldn't be too surprised to find something around this Uranus placement and this Jupiter placement having something in common with the chart of Israel. Actually, let's just look really quick because I'm like, oh yeah, like I can just look up things. Oh my God, what is happening right now? Okay, well, I guess I can't just look up things. What the heck? Okay. And then yeah, Pluto Leo. And then didn't we have another Pluto Leo too? It's like a Pluto return. We had another Pluto Leo, I swear. It's far back. Pluto Leo from Prussia. That's interesting. 14 degrees versus 12 degrees. So it's Pluto return from there. Well, let's actually get back to the slideshow here. I'm going to keep looking at that, but usually it's just going to like kind of give some background on, especially with some of the placements I just gave. Oh, wait, is that Uranus? Okay, cool. Okay. I thought I read something wrong, but we're good. Militant democracy. Oh, yeah, after occupation. Okay, yeah, so militant democracy, parties that threaten order can be banned. A high bar for fringe parties. Strong courts. This, not custom, is legal origin of the firewall. Oh, yeah, we did say that. So, but yeah, and that's like really the interesting thing too, is like where would I say that's at here? I mean, that's another thing you could even tie to this Neptune and Libra on the 12th. It's like dissolution of parties that come together, because there is something a bit contractual about that. There's something that feels very Libran about me, about the assembling of a political party. That feels kind of Libra to me, if I'm being honest. It's Gemini too, and we got plenty of Gemini going on, but there's like a Libra thing I'm feeling with that. I think I mainly, and you know, we got Pluto sextiling as well, Pluto and Leo. It's that same current running underneath from Prussia. That same current that's like with Prussia itself, yeah. It's like a suppressed kind of thing around being able to be themselves, you know, to have self determination. I think that's the best way to put it, self determination. And we've got that Saturn at the anaretic degree of Leo there. It is okay. I'm like, it is Leo, right? I'm like mixing myself up. This is what happens when I look at too many charts for too long. But that's in square over here to the Sun. The Sun right there in at the beginning of Gemini right there. So there goes another thing. It's like the edict that is coming through around the technology and all that. It's like at odds with where they want it to be, with with the way they want to shine, with the way they want to express themselves, you know. And then even looking at this, it's in the eighth house too. So you got these you've got this opposition and the square that's coming into the eighth house, and then that even ties in more with that scorpionic energy, that Plutonian energy of like there being a repression that comes in. So that'll be fascinating to look at this next chart here. Okay, Gemini Libra rebuild. Think deliberate, federate, embedded in alliances. I think it's spelled wrong. Embedded in alliances, never again concrete power. A Mercury retrograde, or oh god, a Mercury retrograde stellium in Gemini even writes coming to terms with the past in the chart. We kind of went over that a little bit too. This is the architecture now under stress, the very chart of modern Germany meeting pressures of 2026. Yeah, and that's the thing. And there's nothing really for me to go back over on the chart in regards to that because we kind of covered that. You know, we're going to see that start to get aspected pretty hard. Let me take a look at this here. Oh, come on. I'm just trying to figure out where I'm at in the slideshow. Okay, 1990. So we're at the reunification. We're on the last chart, guys. We did it. All right. Well, let me actually just get to here. 1990, the halves rejoined. The wall fell on November 9th, 1989. Germans' uncanny day of fate, shared with 1918, 1923, 1938. Reunification followed on the 3rd of October, 1990. So that's interesting. So most astrologers are going to use, and this is what I'm using, is the date that it took effect. I was kind of on the fence or on the wall, on the wall of the German wall, on which chart I should choose. Because I was like, well, that seems like a pretty like fateful thing, tearing down the wall, but like really like for mundane astrology, you're supposed to go into the legislation. And that's like really the big thing, going into the legislation of whether it's a founding document, that kind of thing. And so based off that, it's 1990, not the November 9th, 1989. But it's not like a huge difference. I guess it's a 1 year difference, huh? It's a tough one. But at least we have, we've got that stuff here. So yeah, on November 9th, 1989, that's going to actually share with these other dates of, where was it? Like right here. This is the Weimar Republic. So sharing in the date, and then you're going to have, of course, the sun's going to be at the same degree. And so that would be really interesting to look at. I wish I had that ready for you guys. The wall falling, that would have been interesting. But it's good because, I am running. I wanted to keep it under 2 hours. We're a little over 2 hours, so it's good that we're wrapping up. All I have left to really give you guys is the predictions. So Germany's uncanny day of fate, it was an accession, not a merger. The East joined the Federal Republic's 1949 framework. The 1949 chart still runs. And I mentioned this at the beginning. Like, you're still, like, this is an event chart. Like, we will have to be very specific about it. It's an event chart because you're still, as a basis, going to use that 1949 chart. It depends on the context of what's going on, what chart I'm going to use going forward from today, guys, because it really just depends. Like a lot of these charts, I was going to run a composite chart. I simply don't have the time. Composite chart did contain a lot of Libra, though. It contained a lot of Libra and Aries. So just so you know, because I did look at it. I could run it really cool. We'll see what we're we'll see what we're working with, okay? And that composite chart would be between 1949 and 1949 and what? I think I did it between the Third Reich and 1949, I think. Because that's like the most recent, kind of like makes a lot of sense. It's like two ends of the things that come from these seeding moments. But yeah, 1990s new turning point, unfinished union. Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune clustered in Capricorn. The same signature that ended the Cold War order worldwide. A Libra sun marks the remarriage of the two halves. So yeah, and then there we go. So not quite in orb, but close enough. Now we get back into this Neptune-Saturn conjunction again. And so you look at this time, this was 30 third, guys. What did I give for the freaking the date of these cycles for Germany is 36 years because of the Saturn Neptune conjunctions. That's a 36-year thing. Because Saturn's going to do like 28 to 30 years for a full rotation, but Neptune's going to move in that time. And so for it to catch back up when it comes back around, 36 years. We're in year 36, guys. Some shit's about to go down in Germany. I'm telling you guys. And I'll give some predictions here, but I mean, I don't want to spend a lot of time on the reunification. Ultimately, like, it's funny because it's something that like it's the closest of all these charts to when I'm born, but I actually know the least about it. That shows you what a ninth houser I am. But no, yeah, you got the Libra stuff going on here. I guess we could just glance a little bit back at some of the Libra stuff going on. Yeah, the sun is on. It's in orb. The sun is within orb of, which one was this? Of the Holy Roman Empire chart. Sun within orb of that Neptune. Mercury essentially on that Neptune. Is that Mercury or? Well, it's within orb, but for that conjunction, yeah, some interesting stuff. We got some Leo things going on. South Node Leo, especially interesting to look at that when you got all this these Pluto Leos going on. 14-degree Pluto Leo. Where was that one at? 12-degree Pluto Leo. So that's Prussia and the what's it called? There'll be Prussia and the First Republic of Germany, the 1949 chart. And then okay, yeah. So yeah, that's Jupiter and South Node. I'm like forgetting what degrees those were, but okay. I'll check them one more time. Sorry, guys. 7 degrees and 7 degrees and I'm like clearly hungry. My stomach's wrong. And 14 degrees. So you get these kind of, I mean, they're definitely South Node and Jupiter are definitely conjunct with one of those, but it's a reach for the other one in the first house. So it's, yeah, and this is what I like about this chart, guys, is it's like, okay, like we can kind of go back to some old identity that we had, some old type of identity we had. We got Jupiter there amping that up, and like feeling pride in the nation again with the reunification, because like no one was really a fan of that splitting of Germany. I mean, I don't think I've heard of anyone who really supported that. Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of like splitting up the spoils of war. I guess it's kind of had to do it. Oh, you Russians, you guys are funny. And then, Chiron in the 12th house in Cancer there was a deep wound because you couldn't see the other people in the homeland. It was literally cut down the middle. You couldn't see them in the homeland, which makes sense with this aspect that you're getting to Mars and Gemini. It splits things up, and the Mars and Gemini just in general, too. It's like the splitting that you got going on right there. And then you've got these squares going on to Capricorn. Like, yeah, it really messed with the productivity that you got going on. With Saturn in Capricorn there and Uranus in Capricorn, of course, you're dealing with the conjunction, the Saturn Neptune conjunction. And I'm not saying it's a conjunction here, but this is like around that time. The reunification is 1 year later, though. So I guess I wasn't necessarily wrong with that. The Berlin Wall got torn down with the Saturn Neptune conjunction, because that would have been within orb that year. There, the vertex coming through, some of those old gifts from the past coming through with the Sagittarian energy in the 5th house there for them too. This is going to be an exact time because this is when the law took effect. And then and it's midnight that they did it on this day. So it's a Leo rising too. That kind of gets back into the pride coming back in. Scorpio moon tonight is crazy. Just looked outside. Oh, I'll have to take a look in a second here. And then North Node in Aquarius. So this is where you see we needed to get into this conjunction, come back around to another conjunction here. And then that Saturn-Neptune conjunction, that's going to be aspecting, or well, it already like happened, obviously, but it's aspecting, it's like coming back, it's like doing all of its work in all those area placements that we've seen. But the Saturn-Neptune conjunction is also, I think that seeing the rise of the AFD party over in Germany, the far right wing party, like that. They're gonna. I think they're gonna take power, guys. They're gonna take power, and the people are not going to be happy about it. And this gets into the chart of the 1949 that you really want to look at, where there is like there's they don't you don't know like who's in power, what's going on. And look at, and even this is something I didn't even bring up, the sun in the eighth house too, because the sun can deal with your ruler. Sun in the eighth house, we don't know who's in power. Pluto in the 10th house, we don't know who's in power. And then these are like all, but not these, but like, Venus even in there, that's aspecting. You're actually making a mini grand trine with that. And then Neptune, that deals with what's hidden. It's going to deal with like so there's someone, they don't know who's in power, like these twofold things. But then also, who is the person even like here that's doing it? You know what I mean? Like this shows what's hidden, and it shows like an agreement. So it almost seems like they're run by NATO or like the UN, or you know what I mean? Something weird like that. That's something that like kind of just came through to me. I don't know. Um, but that's the thing. All these things are being aspected. Now these are kind of things I needed to go down line by line and then really look at. So like I had to write down degrees and get all that stuff going. And then there were even extra ones that AI found for me, which were really interesting. And that got me into, well, first of all, guys, yeah, I said at the beginning, very Saturnian nation. So look at, oh yeah, this was something cool that they did for me. So just going into all the placements, Aquarius are the most common placements that we have. So it makes this a very Saturnian nation. You can just see that in general because the ruling planet of Aquarius in medieval astrology, that's going to be Saturn, So you got 13 Aquarius placements, 12 Capricorn placements across all these charts, okay? And so that's like really telling you how Saturnian it is. It's 30% of all the positions, about 30% of all the positions. And so, dominated by a wide margin, Aquarius, Capricorn together more than a quarter of everything. Both are ruled by Saturn. This is the master thread. Germany is astrologically a Saturnian nation. Structure, discipline, hierarchy, law, endurance. The state as a machine. Every cliche, punctual, rigorous, engineered is Saturn. And here it is. Yeah, even like the sense of humor is like, you know what I mean? Like all of the things are so funny. And that's how you know I'm German too, because I'll be having like a pretty dry sense of humor sometimes, guys. Like, and I will crack myself the fuck up, and it's like not even that funny. Like, um, but okay, the two faces of Saturn. Saturn speaks in two registers across the chart. Capricorn is the vertical state, crown, hierarchy, empire. Prussia, the Second Reich, reunification, that kind of stuff. Aquarius is the horizontal collective, the federation, the Volk, or the people, the many as one, Otto, the Third Reich, that kind of stuff. But both, and what it's saying, Otto, that's the crowning of Otto, which would be the Holy Roman Empire chart that we looked at, and then the Third Reich itself. And then there's there's the Charlemagne part of it too, that came a bit earlier than Otto. And then, oh, that's weird. Germany oscillates between them, and the Cancer Capricorn axis lights up again and again. Heimat versus the state, blood and soil versus law. And the blood and soil, that was a big part too, that we didn't really touch on too much. We mentioned it a little bit. Catastrophe comes when the collective will fuses into a single figurehead. Empire above, Volk below, and the abyss between them when the one man claims to embody the whole. And that would be, well, I was going to say that would be Hitler, but you've had multiple men do this, and this is the theme that you see coming up. And then Neptune's sign at each founding traces what Germany idealizes, and the dreams keep turning. So in Libra, and this was back in that time, the 800 chart, and then the 962 chart, the lawful confederation, okay? And then Aries, 1701, that was the Prussian chart, or no, 1701 was the Second Reich. Oh gosh, I've got to go back and look. Okay, it was this one. Yeah, that's the Prussian chart. Okay, 1701, and then the Second Reich's the 1871. So, yeah, so 1701 the Prussian chart, 1871 the Second Reich chart. This is where you get the unified will coming in. This is where I was kind of bringing those things into the fold. This is where the Aries energy enters the fold. And then we've got that Leo energy. Remember, we were looking at that, and this gets into the leaders that they have, the people consolidating that power, the redemptive leader, that kind of stuff. Virgo is that's the part I didn't talk about with Virgo, because they are such like workers, you know what I mean, in a lot of these phases. I didn't even bring in the part of the purity that's with Virgo too. And so Neptune's going to bring in where we saw that Neptune in Virgo. We were just looking at it too, the fantasy of purity. And then with Libra, the Neptune Libra, at the more recent time, yeah, it's the long partnership again. That we see the Neptune Libra, and that's going to be and I also say that that can be like there can be delusions around that too with the people you're going into partnerships with. I think we've seen that since 1949. And then Capricorn, that's where we had the conjunction, of course, too. That would have been 1989 specifically. 1990 is when the state came in. 1989 was the Berlin Wall coming down. Oh, how cool! I didn't know you're part German too, Elizabeth. That's awesome. Uh, and then yeah, dissolving the old order. And so now that old order's been dissolved, we've seen this progressive kind of rise up in Germany, because that was like non-existent. The As far as I know, that kind of like Nazi ideology and way of thinking was much more non-existent around the time of the wall than, and maybe I'm completely wrong though, but around the time of the wall, much less than it is now, because and I wouldn't even call the AFD like a Nazi party or anything, but that's just what goes around. And you're going to see that this firewall is breaking down that was created around it. And so that's also a dissolving of the firewall that was created around German nationalism. That's going to come back too. So I think that's pretty much the entire thing. Yeah, that's pretty much everything. So now we're dealing with, I'll just put this last slide up though, and I'll put that minimize. The will return. So you can destroy a city, a regime, an empire, but not the desire for unity of will. And this guy's asking the question again. So this is really what I'm looking at, guys, is as we get towards the fall, there is something major with the 4th of July conjunction. We're going to dive into that next week. And it's going to be related to this. And I think it's it could be something happening in Europe. I'm going to need to look deeper at the charts. Just what I've seen now, I'm like, whoa, 4th of July, something's popping off around then. It's just crazy. But we're going to look into that. We're going to see how we can relate it into just world events, U.S. events, all of that. But in terms of when I looked at this chart, both the things that came through and just the things that I noticed, that got me writing down a little notepad of predictions. I really only wanted my predictions to go out about 3 years. And I love that there's this new thing that I got my AI to be able to do. And it just did it so fast. I barely spent any time this week like needing to get prepared for this. I'm needing to do it. And my friend Sedona Angel here called it out, that it would require me less and less time to actually be getting all this stuff together, and it's coming together pretty well like that. But no, I was able to put together a timeline here, just with some things that I think are going to happen, and then even the AI gave me a version of just my stuff, and then it had added some stuff which it didn't really add much, but I kind of liked what it added too. It's starting to get better at really looking at things where you're not going to miss stuff with the astrology. So I'm playing around with it. I have an Aquarian and Moon conjunct my Saturn. You can't really blame me for having fun with AI. I'm gonna go as far as you can take it, really. Oh yeah, it's this one. Here we go. So we've got this transit timeline here, and so the first one, and this is what I've been kind of bringing up, is the election that's coming up here. So that's going to be September 6th. So we're going to be we'll be like fresh into the fall, right? Well, or will we still technically be in summer then? But anyway, like late summer, early fall. We're gonna be. I think it's September 21st. Yeah, is when we hit fall. So yeah, so we'll still be in the summer technically. But yeah, so this is we're gonna have Saturn conjunct the midheaven of the 1990 chart, of the reunification chart. Okay, and then we've got a square with Neptune. We've got an opposition to the sun. That's like all going to be happening within a few weeks. And so really what I'm thinking is that AFD wins the election. That's just like one thing right there. That's with the most recent chart, okay? But let me actually go back here. Okay, I just want to see here. Yeah, and at that time. Yeah, and then we're going to be dealing with oppositions to the First Republic of Germany's chart too at that time. There's going to be things that are speeding up ahead and retrogrades at the time. The retrogrades will be opposing everything in the First Republic of Germany, which is the base chart. The other one's just an event chart, which in this case would be okay to use. But yeah, I mean, and then everything's we'll even have stuff around that time that's crossing over into there. You're going to have Jupiter return that's going on as well. There's all these charts are getting hit in major ways. So this is where I say they get the majority of the far right party, and it's going to be the first time, as far as I know, that they've had that majority, which is like a huge thing. But it just makes sense with us having had the Saturn Neptune conjunction. You always see when we get that Saturn Neptune conjunction, it's always within a year that something wild is shifting with the populace happens with Germany. It's going to be very Aquarian. It's going to be very Capricornian. Ultimately, it's going to be very Saturnian that has it happen. You got these accents of all the air signs that come in that deal with the technology, with the thoughts, with the exchanging of ideas and all that. But that's really like one of the big things that we're looking at. And then the MERS coalition here. So that's like really this is exactly what worries me, because essentially what happens with that is that you the way that they do their elections in Germany is they're going to have weird things like before the transition comes in. I think they're going to they'll have a huge win. The transition will come in, and then this is where you start to get, well, first of all, you're going to get terror stuff. That's another thing AI wouldn't do for me. It wouldn't put any terror stuff in here. It's like, well, you'll scare people. You're going to scare people. Don't do that. And I'm just like, dude, what are we, 5? Are we fucking 5, dude? So I'm just like, whatever. I can remember those predictions and all that stuff. But no, so you have really towards the end of the year after the election, then you get these snap elections that come in, like, oh, or like we need to recount all this stuff. And it's just like, I think there's going to be this fracture that happens within the government that's going to be really wild, only made worse by the time you get into like 2026, like the middle of 2026. That's when I'm thinking that we're going to see these terror events that really like have the domestic terror events that pop off. That's about mid 2026 for Germany. And it's going to have to deal with this fight between the government. Remember, we're going to have the South Node in Leo. We're going to have Jupiter in Leo at this time. So these things, this could even result in political assassinations. You could have stuff like that. But there's gonna the people who have been in power in Germany for a long time. They're not gonna want to give it up, you know. And also, when you look at what's even just going on with Trump and how manufactured it seems it all has been for us, like, oh, well, let's like get up a populist leader, let's put him up there, and then like he'll just totally fuck everyone, and he's like not actually populist. It could even be a vibe like that too. This gets more into like 2027 too. So all this back and forth, all these like terror events, which will probably be staged, false flag in some type of way, which is going to probably be by, I mean, I don't really see it being by the AFD unless they like lost or they don't allow them to take power. Then I could see them doing it. But there's going to be this fight over control of the government. You can just really see that in the placements too that are happening because, and this is what I like here is up here. It kind of tells like it's telling the live placements up here, you know, so you get that, you're going to have, what is it? Oh, okay. So this is like what we already had. Okay. I think. Well, whatever. But anyway, you're gonna have that the South Node and Jupiter in Leo, and I just think that's gonna create all the because look at like the Leo stuff that we've got going on with these charts. Both the German reunification, First Republic of Germany. It's got that Pluto there. That's gonna come within orbit, I think, this year because it usually travels through like quite a bit, like the first half, and then retrogrades, and then you get through the rest of it. I think that's what we had like last time or something. But I mean, and I swear there was one more. Weimar Republic. You got these Leo placements. So all these things are being aspected, and these are all like they're all pretty important parts of the chart. Two of these, I guess you could call event charts, but anyway. And then after that, at this point, you have to think of all the things going on in the background. So a great supplement to this will be when I go over my 4th of July thing. It will allow me to add more to these predictions. But there's the whole idea of German rearmament. Okay. Now, we already know that they're doing the draft in Germany. They're not allowing young men. I think it's already taken effect. If not, it takes effect soon. They're not allowing young men to leave Germany unless they have military approval to leave. I've heard many people talking about that. I saw the news report, all that stuff. Maybe I'm like misreading it and it's like some hype or something, but it seems to be pretty accurate. Like, but the only thing I'm saying is I don't know if that's already taken effect or not. I knew it was taking effect soon. So they're ramping up for something coming here. And then I don't even know if that has to do with the election or has to do with actual worries of war. And then this gets back into the Kaliningrad, or Königsberg. So then that's the kind of thing. There's going to be an escalation around that. And I believe this is pretty close to Poland, too. So like this is kind of where you get that whole thing where like Poland, Ukraine, Kaliningrad, Königsberg, that's like I think that's where we see a huge escalation. And that's actually going to be by the middle of 2026. Like it could be sooner, could be later. I can get a definite answer on that once I look at the astrology in general for the 4th of July. Cuz that's where I could see something coming in around then. I mean, technically even within the next like month. I could see something popping off around the border, around Kaliningrad, and then it would probably have to do more with drones. It would be higher technology. It'd be like drones, missiles, like that kind of stuff. But I'm specifically thinking of like all the drones that they have, all the fiber optic cords that are on the border between Ukraine and Russia, because they have to connect all to keep them from getting jammed, the drones, like to an actual fiber optic cable. And so you've got these towns that are just like cloaked in fiber optic cables that are right on the border, which is it's wild. And then, but yeah, like really, that's kind of my window. Uranus is like the exact crossing of the 1949 Sun and the 1933 Mercury. That's going to be like later in 2026. So these are like smaller things where you're starting to see the rupture, starting to see the disruption, the fracture, all that. That's where it's going to be around this Aquarian type stuff with the Pluto, these things coming out of the woodwork, Pluto and Aquarius, things coming out of the woodwork, aspecting all these Aquarian placements as it is in Aquarian nation, Saturn, when you're using dispositors or whatever you want to say. I'm not even necessarily doing that right now, but just as a Saturnian nation, we've got Saturn in Aries right now. Like there's going to be some kind of violence around that, Mars, Uranus all day in full effect, end of June through July 4th. Yep. I'm like, the way with these charts we've been looking at, I'm like, there's something coming up here for this country. And I think it's good for them in a way because it's going to allow them to take more power, to have more national identity. And they would be a good partner for us to have, honestly. Going forward. Oh, excuse me. Going forward. I need some water here. But ultimately, it just sucks like what we're going to kind of see go down. Like, why would you bring all of those immigrants into Germany? Why would you do that, And it really shows you the level the elites are at with how much they fucking hate us. Because like all people are asking for is a better life, for things to be more affordable, for our money not to be wasted. And for them, they'd rather bring in illegal immigrants. And this is in all the countries. They'd rather flood in illegal immigrants. They'd be like, oh, if you're not going to appreciate it, well, they'll appreciate it here. Than just do the simplest of things to help their nation. So this is where you're going to see the pushback in so many countries. But Germany is going to really set the example. Germany is going to set the tone. These things they happen in Europe first. And like when you're talking about the World War II energy coming back, that stuff happens. It happened in Europe first, like that's where all this stuff popped off. That's who suffers the most and all that. And I think a lot of countries are going to do worse. We'll get through charts of other countries and stuff, but a lot of countries are going to do a lot worse. And then, Germany's going to really come out on the forefront. They're going to reindustrialize all sorts of stuff. But that's more like 2028, the reindustrialization, rearmament, and all that. First, we have to go through this chaos and this rupturing of the world. And this is just going to tie in a lot too. I don't know. Just the energy in general, that we're seeing right now coming in, and this will be starting 4th of July, roughly. Like around that time, the 4th of July. That's where we're seeing. Everyone talks about going into a new world this year. I think that's really where we see the year actually begin, and that's why I think this full moon that we're having is for your own personal development, the most important moon of this year. Not going to be where we see the craziest events of the year by any means, but it is going to be the most important for your personal development to get you ready for what's coming. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. We'll get deeper into the 4th of July chart, like I said, and then that will allow me to double back to this infographic in particular. Yeah. Oh, Germany and Italy. Yeah, it can be like World War One, right? Well, I guess World War Two as well. But well, in World War One, Italy was kind of iffy, man. First they were joined, and then they were like, oh well, they read the fine print on their agreement, and they're like, oh wait, it says here we don't actually aren't bound to this, so we're out. And then I think at the last second they kind of did join, but then they joined with the Allies. It was crazy. It was crazy. But yeah, this is just kind of a couple things I put together, but the main things, I'll kind of go back to webcam here as I sign out. I think the main things I just really want to I gotta fix this, that I want to emphasize here is really from Germany. What we should be looking out for is these elections that are coming up. These elections, I've been seeing all sorts of propaganda around the elections that they're saying oh, the AfD isn't doing that good, the far right wing in Germany isn't really doing that good, blah blah blah. And then even things sneaking over into the far right sphere that's oh well, since we think you guys are super racist and all this stuff, look, here's Indian people in the AfD, see, it's all a sham. So now they know people want to vote for it, and they're so sick of the policies, so they're trying to delegitimize the actual party. So now that's how I know they're scared. That's how I know it's more than probably that 29% that was given about the amount of AfD people from that party, from the far right party in Germany, who are going to actually be voting for it. So no, I think we're going to see a huge wave of people. And if the stuff going on in the UK is any indicator, that's what we can expect to see in Germany. Just like we had this red wave, this is a case where the stuff actually reaches Europe later, is when it comes to the election stuff. We'll get a red wave and then they get a red wave. And so we're seeing we had the red wave. Now they're having their red wave. That's crept over there. So I think they're really going to elect they're going to elect someone in there. I forget who the person running is for the AfD, but they're going to get that person elected. And then it's going to take everyone by surprise. The people who are in power, they're going to try to maneuver in whichever way they can. This is where we get into the towards the end of the year having snap elections, them trying to pull out any legislation that they can that will change the trajectory of that. And then that leads to violence from one side or another. It could be either side. This could be either side that does it. But I'm leaning towards they're able to get in, and then you see Muslim extremism, I guess you could say. There's no better way to put it. And I'm not really a whole person who buys into Muslim extremism and all that stuff, but false flags, that kind of stuff. So that'll get going, and then this will kind of create a whole restructuring where reach Germany before so many other places in Europe specifically. And this is where Europe starts early when it comes to World War II energy, World War energy in general, like the things beginning and popping off in Europe. This is where you see civil strife start to pop off in Europe and spread, and then that's going to spread to other nations like China, like the US. This will be more closer to like 2028, in my opinion. But you'll have a year of them really dealing with the domestic terror stuff. This is when Russia can make a move, and Königsberg is such a big city. You know, it's now Kaliningrad, uh, and it's under Russian control. But this is going to be a huge part and aspect of it as well, especially if Russia gets involved with the strife that's going on in Germany. So these are just things to look out for, things that I'm seeing in the chart itself. I'll probably look at the chart of Königsberg, and then I'll be looking at the chart of Russia. That's when I can get more ironed down with these predictions here. Chart of Japan, chart of Ukraine, that kind of stuff. Those ones should actually be short ones. This one just took a while because it's like it just goes back, man. It's Germany. They got a rich history, but that's really what I'm looking at. Yeah, and then a period of rearmament. They'll be rearming at that same time where their civil strife spreads. They will have already conscripted people. They will have already put them to work, and reindustrialize Germany, and then that will start to spread to the other nations. So they'll be quite a bit ahead on that, in my opinion. And then that's where you see as they've begun the process of rearming and finish up with rearming and are gearing up for whatever. Then that's when you have the U.S. kind of, still in like the earlier stages of civil strife. And I think this is going to manifest itself as factions of our government fighting one another. You see, right? You can see it very clearly right now. Look at the resignation of Tulsi Gabbard right after the FBI seized all her documents. That's crazy. That's literally crazy. FBI or CIA, I forget which one, but they came in, they seized all the documents for like all the information she was going to release on MK Ultra, and I think it was like more JFK stuff or something. And then it's like a couple days later, she quits, and she's like, I need to be with my husband because he got a cancer diagnosis, and I want to be with him for his recovery. It's like, I mean, like I'm sure he had a cancer diagnosis, but no. But anyway, those are kind of just some of the general predictions. And we'll kind of refine these as we go forward, but I just wanted to get them on the record. And I want to thank everyone who was here. Let me see. Did I get all the... Oh, yeah. Okay. I was just checking chat, guys. Cool. Yeah. All right. Well, I love everyone. Thank you for stopping by Nightlight Astrology. My link tree is on my YouTube. It's on my X page if you're watching on X. And feel free to get a reading there, or just follow me on any of my other platforms. I think the readings are very fair. I've got one for every price range, literally. So even if you just wanted a smaller reading for something particular in life, they're like very affordable, and I'll beat a lot of people's prices on those. So feel free to check that out. And yeah, and then I also put all my predictions. I get them onto Twitter, usually after my streams. So like keep an eye out for a thread that's going to contain all of these. And I have a thread. I'll probably get that out tonight from my last Trinity of Convergence stream. And that's going to have all the information from that. So you can kind of get all the information in one go. And these are all under my highlights. So, but anyway, take it easy, guys. Have a good one.